Hey guys, tonight we're going to step into a time machine, but not one of gleaming chrome and flashing lights. Ours is made of memory, of dust, and of the faint genetic echoes that hum within your very own DNA. We're journeying back 10,000 years to meet our ancestors and to ask a simple question. What were they doing? Imagine, we are standing on the edge of a vast sheet of ice. It is not the pristine, silent white you might picture. It's a groaning, cracking monster of a thing, miles thick and weeping water from a million wounds. The air is thin, cold, and carries the scent of wet stone and ancient frost. This colossal glacier stretches to a horizon so distant, it feels like the edge of the world. It has dominated the planet for 100,000 years, a frozen king on a throne of rock. But now, it is dying. But in that immense, indifferent landscape, a faint curl of smoke appears. It's a campfire. Around it are figures wrapped in hide and fur, their faces illuminated by the flickering light. They are a family. A hunting party, a tiny, fragile spark of warmth and life in a world of ice. These people, whose world is changing faster than any humans have ever experienced before, are your direct great, well, you get the idea, grandparents. Over millennia, they have endured the biting cold, hunted monstrous beasts, and watched the very stars shift in the sky. They have survived the longest winter in human history, only to find themselves facing a new, unrecognizable world, the Great Thaw. So what secrets do these ancestors hold about who we are? How did they navigate a planet that was fundamentally reshaping itself beneath their feet? And as the ice retreated and the forests grew, what new ideas, technologies, and dangers were born? Thanks to the patient work of archaeologists, geneticists, and climate scientists, tonight we will venture into their world together to find the answers. Frankly, if you were dropped here without your modern clothes and knowledge, you wouldn't survive a single night to realize just how wrong your survival show assumptions were. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. That small click sends a big signal to the algorithm. That long-form, serious, educational content still matters. And to me, it's an incredibly meaningful show of support. Thank you so much for helping keep this channel going strong. It always fascinates me to see where you're all tuning in from. Let me know in the comments where you are in the world and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your world stands on a knife's edge between two epochs. The age you were born into, the age of your parents and their parents, is dying. Geologists of the far future will call it the Pleistocene, a long, brutal era of grinding ice and bitter cold. But the world being born, the one your children will inherit, is something new. They'll call it the Holocene, the geological epoch that we, you and I, are still living in today. This great transition, a mainstream historical fact you can hang your hat on, is officially dated to have begun around 11,700 years ago. For you, though, it's not a date in a textbook. It's the mud squelching under your feet where there used to be frozen tundra. It's the strange new birds you see in the sky. You don't know why the world is warming, of course. You only know the stories the elders tell, of a great white serpent that is finally retreating to its lair in the north. The truth is vastly larger, written in the slow, majestic dance of the planets. The scientific evidence lies in what we now call Milankovitch cycles. Think of it as the Earth's celestial rhythm. Our planet doesn't just spin perfectly, it wobbles on its axis like a slightly tired top. Its orbit around the Sun isn't a perfect circle, but a gentle oval that stretches and shrinks over 100,000 years. And its tilt leans back and forth over 40,000 years. When these three rhythms align just right, less sunlight reaches the northern hemisphere, and the great ice sheets are born. When they drift apart, the sun's warmth returns, and the ice begins its long retreat. You are living through the upswing of one of the most powerful warming cycles in millions of years. The soundtrack to your life is the sound of this melting. It's not a peaceful dripping. It's an aggressive, chaotic symphony. In the distance, you hear a percussive crack, like a thunderclap as a fissure hundreds of feet long splits a glacier. This is followed by a deafening roar as a wall of ice the size of a mountain range collapses into a newly formed lake. The rivers are not gentle streams. They are torrents, choked with silt and ice that change their course overnight and chew away the landscape. Everywhere there is the sound of water, gushing, trickling, seeping from the ground itself. The air smells of damp, raw earth, a smell of decay and birth, all at once. It's the planet's exhalation after holding its breath for an ice age. This warming hasn't been a smooth ride. Your own grandfather would have told you stories of the Great Cold, a time when the warming suddenly stopped and reversed. A quirky historical tidbit for us, but a terrifying reality for them. We call this period the Younger Dryas, a 1,000-year-long cold snap that plunged the world back into near glacial conditions right when it seemed to be escaping them. It was a planetary whiplash, a final, vicious bite from the winter serpent. The impact of this event on human societies was immense. Historians still argue whether the Younger Dryas, by creating immense environmental stress, was the final push that forced humans in the Near East to abandon foraging and begin the risky experiment of agriculture. But now, the cold is truly over. The warmth is here to stay, and in this new, warmer, wetter world, humanity is thinly spread, but poised for change. The most common estimate suggests a global human population of maybe 5 million people. That's it. The population of modern-day Singapore or Finland, scattered across every continent except Antarctica. You live in a small band of maybe 30 or 40 related individuals. You know your local territory, its hills, rivers, and spirits, as intimately as you know your own hand. But you are likely completely unaware that anyone exists on the other side of the nearest mountain range, let alone across the ocean. Your world is both immense and incredibly small, and it is about to change forever. This new warmth brings a new danger, one far more relentless than any predator. The water is rising, not just in the rivers, but from the Great Salt Sea itself. You don't understand its source, this slow, inexorable flood. It's not rain. It's the dying breath of the ice sheets, thousands of miles away, releasing their lifeblood into the oceans. The scientific evidence for this is now locked away in ice cores and seafloor sediments. But it tells a staggering story. The Great Laurentide ice sheet over North America and the Fennoscandian sheet over Scandinavia were continental in scale, over 2 miles thick in places. As they melted, they released a volume of water so immense it's almost impossible to comprehend. Over the course of several thousand years, they would raise the level of every ocean on Earth by nearly 400 feet, or 120 meters. Imagine a 40-story skyscraper. Now imagine that much water being added to the sea. This is the deluge your people are living through. For you, it's not a number. It's a lived reality, a story told in generations. Your great-grandmother, she used to tell you of a special grove of oak trees where she gathered acorns as a girl, a full day's walk from the sea. For your mother, that grove was a place you could only reach at low tide, its roots tangled in seaweed. For you, it is gone. It exists only in memory, a ghost forest shimmering beneath the waves. The coastline is a thief, and every year it steals a little more of your world. You watch the seas swallow the land your ancestors walked, and you know, with a certainty that settles deep in your bones, that you will have to move your camp again soon, and again after that. Your home is the heartland of Northern Europe, a place that no longer exists on any modern map. We call it Doggerland. Today, it's a murky seabed under the North Sea, a place of fishing trawlers and oil rigs. But for you, it is the entire world. And it is glorious. It's a vast, low-lying plain connecting the island that will one day be Britain to the mainland, that will one day be Denmark and the Netherlands. Forget the idea of a barren, wind-swept land bridge. Your home is a European Serengeti. Great rivers, the ancestors of the Thames and the Rhine, meander across the plain, creating a rich network of marshes, lagoons, and fertile estuaries. The landscape is a mosaic of birch and pine forests, open grasslands, and dense wetlands. It is teeming with life. Herds of aurochs, the enormous wild cattle that are the stuff of nightmares and feasts, graze on the plains. Red deer, elk, and wild boar move through the forests. The rivers are so thick with salmon, eel, and pike that at times it seems you could walk across their backs. It's some of the most valuable real estate on the planet. Not that you've invented real estate, or value, or, for that matter, planets. You are one of the Maglemosian people, the culture that calls this paradise home. Your life is woven from wood, bone, and water. You are master woodworkers, felling trees with flint axes to build dugout canoes that are your most prized possessions. With them, you navigate the rivers and explore the coastline, fishing and hunting waterfowl. Your toolkit is a marvel of Mesolithic engineering. You don't just use large, clumsy stones. You have perfected the art of making microliths, tiny, razor-sharp flint bladelets that you set into bone and antler to create fearsome, effective harpoons and arrows. You live a semi-nomadic life, moving with the seasons between established camps, following the resources the land and water provide so generously. But you can feel your world shrinking. The sea, once a distant provider, is becoming a hungry neighbor. The rivers near the coast now taste of salt. Storms seem to lash further and further inland each year. What was once a vast plain is becoming a collection of islands. Then comes the day the stories will speak of for 1,000 years. A quirky and debated tidbit in our modern science, but a terrifying world-ending event for you. Far to the northwest, off the coast of what will be Norway, a vast section of the continental shelf collapses. This is the Storegga Slide, a submarine landslide of unimaginable scale. It triggers a tsunami. A great wall of water, perhaps 30 feet high, scours the remaining lowlands of your home. It's a cataclysm. It doesn't drown all of Doggerland in a single day, but it's a mortal blow. A saltwater wave that poisons the land, destroys the forests, and sweeps away entire communities. Your world, the heartland of your people for uncounted generations, is now a broken, dying marsh, a graveyard of your ancestors being claimed by the sea. And you are not alone in this loss. This was a global phenomenon, a shared human trauma of a drowning world. To the southeast, the vast tropical subcontinent of Sundaland, which connected Sumatra, Java, and Borneo to mainland Asia, was also succumbing to the rising sea, creating the thousands of islands of Indonesia. Further still, the land that once joined Australia to New Guinea and Tasmania was severed by the waves. Countless myths and legends from cultures all over the world, from the Epic of Gilgamesh to the story of Noah, speak of a great flood. Perhaps these are not just myths. Perhaps they are the faint, distilled memories of a time when the entire world was living through the great Thaw and watching the oceans rise. As your old world drowns, the new world that emerges is becoming quieter, emptier. The ground no longer shakes as it once did. For thousands of years, your ancestors shared this land with giants. We call them the Pleistocene megafauna, a clinical-sounding name for a truly awesome reality. For you, they are simply the other great powers of the world, beings of immense presence and strength. You have seen a woolly mammoth, its shaggy brown coat like a moving hillside, its curved tusks longer than you are tall, sweeping snow from the winter grasses. You have steered clear of the short-faced bear, a long-legged predator that could look a man in the eye while on all fours and outrun a horse. You have heard the scream of the Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat, and have seen the evidence of its kills. Bison with their throats torn out by teeth like daggers. These creatures are not monsters from a fairy tale. They are the landscape, as real and present as the mountains and the rivers. Hunting them is the ultimate test of your people's skill, courage, and cooperation. A mammoth hunt is the stuff of legend, an event that will be retold around the fire for generations. This is not the work of one person, but of your entire band moving as one. The hunt begins not with a spear, but with knowledge. You know how the mammoth thinks, how it moves, where it will go for water. The plan is laid out for days. Scouts track the herd, looking for an individual that is young, old, or isolated. The trap is set in a narrow ravine or a boggy patch of ground, where the giant's weight will be its undoing. The scientific evidence for your success is undeniable. Archaeologists have found your distinctive, fluted spear points lodged in the ribs of mammoth skeletons, a testament to your lethal skill. You use the atlatl, or spear thrower, an invention that acts as an extension of your arm, turning your spear into a deadly long-range projectile. The moment of the kill is a terrifying, chaotic ballet of shouted commands, trumpeting roars, and the thud of stone points hitting thick hide. To bring down one of these beasts is to secure the survival of your people for the entire winter, a walking larder of meat, fat, hides, and ivory. It's the kind of success that calls for a multi-week celebratory barbecue, a party your distant foodie descendants could only dream of. But these great hunts are becoming rarer. The giants are vanishing. You are living through the climax of the Quaternary extinction event, a great dying that will see more than half of the world's large animal species disappear forever. The cause of this catastrophe is one of the greatest murder mysteries in prehistory. Two main suspects stand accused. The first suspect is you. This is the overkill hypothesis. It argues that your ancestors, armed with deadly new technologies like the atlatl and spreading rapidly across the globe, were an invasive species of unparalleled lethality, hunting the slow-breeding megafauna to extinction. The second suspect is the climate, the same warming trend that is drowning your world. This climate hypothesis suggests that the rapid environmental changes destroyed the habitats these animals relied on. The cold, dry mammoth steppe, a vast grassland that once stretched across the northern hemisphere, was replaced by wet, boggy forests, starving the great grazers. So, who was the real killer? Historians still argue whether humans were the primary executioners or simply opportunistic scavengers at the scene of a climate-driven crime. The truth is likely messy, a conspiracy between the two. The changing climate put the megafauna on the ropes. Stressed, disoriented, their populations dwindling, and your ancestors, ever adaptable, delivered the final knockout blow. On some continents, like Australia and the Americas, where humans arrived relatively late, the extinctions were swift and devastating. In Africa, where humans and megafauna had coexisted for millions of years, the extinctions were far less severe. The animals there had learned the hard way that the small, two-legged ape was the most dangerous predator of all. For you, the debate is meaningless. You only know the world is becoming a lonelier place. A quirky tidbit of this time is that you are now living with ecological ghosts. You might see a tree with huge, tough-skinned fruits that no living animal is large enough to eat and disperse. That tree co-evolved with the giant ground sloth, its long-lost seed-spreading partner. The landscape itself holds the memory of the giants it was built for. When you were a child, your grandfather's stories were of a world teeming with these colossal beings. Now, you tell your own children the same stories, but they sound more like myths. You find their enormous bones bleaching in the sun along riverbanks, the tusks of mammoths and the skulls of giant bison. You might even incorporate them into your rituals, treating them as relics of a bygone age of heroes and monsters. The spirits of the land feel different now, more subdued. The earth has fallen silent, and you are left walking in the quiet footsteps of ghosts. With the giants gone, and the world settling into its new, warmer rhythm, let's turn our attention away from the landscape and inward to you. Who are you, this human of 10,000 years ago? Stripped of your animal hide clothes and your stone tools, you are indistinguishable from a person walking down the street today. You are Homo sapiens, the same species, with the same body plan, the same brain. Yet your physical reality is profoundly different. The scientific evidence for this comes directly from your bones. Your skeleton, if an archaeologist were to find it, would tell a story of immense physical strength. Your bones are thicker, denser, and bear the marks of powerful muscle attachments, the result of a life of constant, strenuous movement. You are, on average, shorter than most modern people, but you are incredibly robust, built for endurance and power. A mainstream historical fact is that your average life expectancy is tragically low, perhaps only around 30 years. But this number is a statistical lie, heavily skewed by high infant mortality and the dangers of a world without antibiotics. If you survive the gauntlet of childhood and a hunting accident doesn't get you, you stand a good chance of living into your 50s, 60s, or even 70s, becoming a respected elder, a living library of your people's knowledge. Your senses operate at a level most of us can barely imagine. Your world is not filled with the constant low-grade hum of machinery, the glare of artificial lights, or the chemical soup of modern scents. Your world is one of deep, profound silence and velvet darkness, punctuated by the sharp, meaningful sounds and smells of nature. Your hearing is a precision instrument. You don't just hear a sound in the forest. You know it's the sound of a deer stepping on a dry twig, and you can tell from the cadence of its walk that it isn't spooked. Your eyesight, unaccustomed to staring at close-up screens, is perpetually fixed on the middle distance, constantly scanning for the flick of an ear in the grass or the subtle change in texture on the horizon that signals a shift in the weather. And your sense of smell is a primary tool for survival. It warns you of a predator upwind, tells you which plants are safe to eat, and informs you that rain is coming on the breeze. Cognitively, you are our equal in every respect. The brain inside your skull has the same capacity for language, abstract thought, and complex problem-solving as a modern physicist or poet. The cognitive revolution that ignited human creativity happened tens of thousands of years before your time. You are its inheritor. You can think about the past and plan for the future. You can conceive of things you have never seen, like spirits or the land beyond the great water. You tell stories, you make jokes, you feel love, jealousy, and grief with the same intensity as any human who has ever lived. The great trap is to imagine you are a simple, brutish creature. You are not. You are a complex, intelligent, and emotionally sophisticated person living a very, very different life. You just don't have to worry about your search history or what your boss thinks of your latest email. What you possess that we have lost is a different kind of knowledge. Your mind is a living encyclopedia of your environment, a database of information passed down through generations and verified by your own experience. You carry a detailed mental map of a territory covering hundreds of square miles. You can identify hundreds of species of plants, knowing which ones will heal a wound, which will kill you, which will dye a piece of leather, and which are ready to eat. You understand the intricate habits of every animal you share the land with. You can read the clouds, the wind, and the behavior of birds to predict the weather with uncanny accuracy. This knowledge is not written down. It's embodied, a practical intelligence that lives in your hands, your eyes, and your gut. Your entire world is built on the foundation of your social connections. You live in a small, tight-knit band of perhaps 25 to 50 individuals, most of whom are your relatives. These are the only people you will likely ever know, and your life depends completely on them. There is no government, no police, no laws written on stone tablets. There is only the intricate web of kinship, friendship, and reciprocal obligation. Survival is a team sport. The meat from a successful hunt is shared according to strict cultural rules. Childcare is a communal responsibility. The knowledge of one is the property of all. Your social brain is working overtime, constantly navigating the complex dynamics of this small group, building alliances, resolving conflicts, and reinforcing bonds through grooming, gossip, and shared ritual. A quirky piece of evidence for your hands-on life is written on your teeth. Anthropologists examining the skeletons of your people often find distinctive patterns of wear, not from chewing food, but from using your teeth as a third hand. You clamp down on a piece of leather to stretch it taut while you scrape it with a flint tool. You grip cordage made from sinew or plant fiber in your teeth to braid it into rope. Your teeth are a versatile part of your toolkit, and their worn, grooved surfaces tell the story of a life of constant, practical craft, a story of a human animal perfectly and intelligently adapted to its world. You have survived. Your world drowned, but your people endured. You are the descendants of those who walked the dry plains of Doggerland. and you have adapted to the water that claimed your ancestral home. Your new world is a vast, sodden landscape of marshlands, meandering rivers, and dense, misty forests. You live in the lands that will one day be called Denmark, northern Germany, and Britain. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and the rich, fishy smell of the river that is your new lifeline. The solid ground of your ancestors has been replaced by a world that is fluid and ever-changing, a world of water, and you have become a people of the water. Your day begins with the pale grey light filtering through the walls of your temporary shelter, a dome-shaped hut made from bent saplings and covered in animal hides or sheets of birch bark. The first order of business is not a commute, but a quiet walk to the river's edge. Here, you have built an ingenious fish trap, a weir made of woven willow branches that funnels fish into a cage. This morning, it is full. Pike, eel, and perch flap and writhe within the basket. It is a good omen. It means you will eat well today without the danger of a hunt. In a world of wetlands, the grocery store basically comes to you, which is a convenience that can't be overstated. Later, a few of the men will take the dugout canoe to hunt red deer in the drier, forested lands further from the river, while the women and children will forage for hazelnuts, berries, and the starchy roots of water lilies. Your life is a constant, rhythmic engagement with the resources of the forest and the river. Your toolkit is a testament to your adaptability. It is the technology of the Maglemosian culture, a name you would not know, but a tradition you embody. The star of the show is the microlith. You have mastered the art of striking a flint core to produce dozens of tiny razor-sharp bladelets. These are not used on their own. They are components, interchangeable parts for sophisticated composite tools. You set them into a groove carved in a piece of bone or antler, securing them with birch tar resin. The result is a fearsome, saw-toothed edge on a barbed harpoon that will not slip from a struggling pike, or an arrow that will slice deep into a fleeing deer. Your most important tool, however, is your canoe. You fell a massive lime or oak tree with a polished flint axe, then painstakingly hollow it out with controlled fire and an adze. This vessel is your key to the world, allowing you to travel, hunt, and trade along the intricate network of waterways that defines your territory. The hard scientific evidence of your life is buried in the peat of a place we now call Star Car in Britain. This site, once a lakeside camp, has preserved your world with miraculous clarity. Archaeologists there have unearthed the very barbed harpoons you used, made from red deer antler. They have found the bones of the animals you ate: red deer, elk, aurochs, and wild boar. They have even found the remains of the oldest known structure in Britain, a circular dwelling on the edge of the ancient lake, and wooden trackways built to help you walk over the marshy ground. Starcar is a perfect snapshot of your watery world, a 10,000-year-old postcard from the drowned plains. But you are not just practical survivors. You have a rich inner life, a world of symbols and spirits. You adorn yourselves with pendants made of amber, the fossilized tears of ancient pine trees, which you drill and polish with meticulous care. You carve strange geometric patterns, chevrons, grids, and zigzags, onto bone tools and pieces of antler. The most enigmatic and fascinating artifacts from Star Car are the deer frontlets. This is a truly quirky find. Your people took the skulls of red deer stags, antlers and all, and carefully perforated and hollowed them out so they could be worn like a mask or headdress. 21 of them have been found. They are not hunting disguises. They are too clumsy for that. The most compelling theory is that these were the ceremonial regalia of shamans. By wearing the skull of the great stag, the shaman could perhaps connect with its spirit, travel to the other world, or perform rituals to ensure a successful hunt. You do not see a separation between your world and the world of the spirits. The river, the forest, and the animals are all alive with a power you must respect and negotiate with. By wearing the antlers, you are not just pretending, you are becoming. Let us leave the misty, waterlogged plains of the north and journey south, following the sun. We travel across the lands that will become France, heading toward the Pyrenees Mountains and the warm coasts of the Mediterranean. Here, the air is different. It's drier, scented with pine and thyme. The sun is a stronger presence, casting sharp shadows on the limestone cliffs. This is the world your ancestors, the great Magdalenian artists, inhabited. Their legacy is all around you, deep within the sacred caves. Astonishing galleries of painted bison, horses, and mammoths that seem to breathe in the flickering torchlight. But the world has changed. The great herds of the Ice Age are gone, and with them, the grand style of art has faded. You are a person of the Azilian culture, and your art is smaller, more personal, more mysterious. You no longer paint vast murals in the deep, dark places of the earth. Instead, you collect smooth, flat pebbles from the riverbeds and paint them with strange, abstract symbols in red ochre. Dots, stripes, crosses, chevrons. They feel significant, humming with a meaning that is now lost to time. We find caches of these painted pebbles in your cave shelters, hundreds of them, laid out in careful patterns. What are they? Scholars still debate whether these were memory aids, ritual objects, or a form of proto-writing. Are they a record of kills? A lunar calendar? The names of your ancestors? They are a silent, enigmatic language that we can no longer read, a testament to a mind just as symbolic and complex as our own. Your life is a blend of the old and the new. You still hunt the red deer and the ibex that roam the hills, your skill with a bow and arrow just as keen as your northern cousins with their harpoons. But you also rely heavily on smaller, more predictable resources. You have become an expert at foraging, and one of your favorite foods, judging by the mountains of evidence you leave behind, is snails. Archaeologists find massive shell middens, the discarded remains of tens of thousands of snail dinners. It might not sound as glamorous as hunting aurochs, but it's a reliable source of protein in a changing world. It's practical, and it probably beats another dinner of just acorns. But your world is not entirely one of peaceful snail gathering and pebble painting. Travel with me to a rock shelter in what is now Castellón, on the eastern coast of Spain. Here, on a sun-drenched cliff face, your people painted a scene that shattered our modern romantic illusions about your peaceful existence. It is a battle. There is no mistaking it. Two groups of archers, their bodies lean and stick-like in the region's artistic style, are locked in combat. One group defends a high position while the other advances, arrows flying between them. Figures are depicted falling, pierced by projectiles. This isn't a hunting scene. This is organized, lethal, intergroup violence. This is war. This single painting, a mainstream historical fact dated to the Mesolithic, was a shock to the system for many historians who envisioned the pre-agricultural world as a kind of peaceful egalitarian utopia. Turns out, you had bad neighbors too. Now, let's cross the water. journeying to the island of Sicily. Here on the coast live your cousins of the late Epigravettian culture. In the Grotta del Genovese, a sea cave on the island of Levanzo, they also left a record of their lives, carved directly into the stone. But the feeling here is different. The art is not abstract, nor is it about war. It is a stunningly realistic celebration of life and the sea. The scientific evidence of their diet and focus is etched right into the walls. You can see the powerful, streamlined bodies of tuna, a prize catch for any coastal people. You see human figures, including a man leading a deer and what appear to be pregnant women, their bodies full and round. There's an intimacy and a naturalism here that feels very different from the schematic violence in Spain or the abstract symbols of the Azilians. It speaks of a people deeply connected to the rhythms of the sea and the cycles of fertility. So here, in the sun-drenched south of Europe, you live a life of contradictions. You are an artist of the abstract, a forager of the humble snail, a hunter of the swift deer. You are a creator of beautiful images that celebrate the abundance of the sea and the miracle of new life. And you are a warrior, capable of participating in organized, lethal conflict. You are not a simple, noble savage or a brutal caveman. You are a complete human being, living a life as complex and often contradictory as our own. Now we turn our backs on the warm south and journey east into the heart of the great North European plain. The landscape unfolds into a seemingly endless expanse of forest and sky. This is the world that will one day become Poland, the Baltic states, and Western Russia. The air here is sharp and clean, smelling of pine resin and cold river water. The forests are vast, primordial seas of birch and pine, so dense that the sunlight dapples the mossy ground in shifting patterns. This is a quieter, more austere world than the ones we have visited so far. It is a land that demands resilience, patience, and a deep, intimate knowledge of the forest. You are a Svidarian hunter, a master of this domain. While your cousins in the west are learning to live by the sea, and your relatives in the south are gathering snails, you remain a specialist hunter of big game. But your prey is not the aurochs of the lost plains. It is the reindeer and the mighty moose. You are semi-nomadic, not wandering aimlessly, but moving in a known, predictable rhythm, following the migratory herds and returning to established base camps in sheltered river valleys. Your toolkit is distinct and elegant, a mainstream historical fact that defines your culture for archaeologists. Your spear points are not clumsy lumps of rock. They are beautiful, deadly works of art, pressure-flaked into a distinctive shape like a willow leaf, with a small tang at the base for hafting onto a shaft. In these dense, dark woods, your most important hunting companion is not human. It is your dog. The partnership between human and dog, forged thousands of years earlier, is absolutely essential here. A moose is a formidable and dangerous animal, standing taller than a man at the shoulder, with powerful hooves and a notoriously foul temper. Hunting it alone in the thick forest would be near suicide. But with your dogs, the odds shift. They are your scouts, your trackers, your partners. Their superior senses of smell and hearing locate the prey. They harry and corner the great beast, their barking and nipping keeping it distracted and at bay, giving you the crucial moments you need to move in and make a clean, effective kill with your spear. They are family, protectors, and an essential piece of your survival technology. Let us journey even further east, pushing toward the spine of the continent, the Ural Mountains. Here the forests grow even wilder, the winters longer and colder. You are on the frontier of your world, gazing at the edge of the vast, unknown expanse of Siberia. It is here, in a peat bog at a place we call Shagir, that your people created one of the most astonishing and enigmatic artifacts in the entire prehistoric world. For thousands of years it lay submerged in the oxygen-free acidic water, which preserved it perfectly. When it was discovered in the 19th century, it was so strange, so advanced, that scholars refused to believe it was ancient. We now know, from direct radiocarbon dating, that the Shiga idol is approximately 11,600 years old. This is your quirky and mind-boggling tidbit. It is more than twice as old as the pyramids of Giza, more than twice as old as Stonehenge. It is a monumental sculpture carved from a single massive larch log. Originally, it would have stood over 5 meters, or 16 feet, tall. Its surface is covered in a complex language of geometric symbols, chevrons and straight lines that seem to tell a story or impart some kind of information. And gazing out from this symbolic tapestry are faces. At least 8 of them, carved at different points up the idol's length. The topmost face is 3-dimensional, with a wide, impassive expression. The others are flatter, like spirits peering out from the wood. It's the oldest known monumental wooden sculpture in the world. A piece of art so sophisticated it looks like something you'd find in a modern gallery. Only it was made by hunter-gatherers at the end of the last ice age. What on earth is it? What does it mean? We will never truly know. Its creators left no written text to guide us. Was it a totem pole representing the lineage of a clan? Was it a map of the spirit world, with the different faces representing different spiritual realms? Was it a narrative, a story of creation, or a great mythological hero, meant to be read from bottom to top? It is a silent, wooden messenger from a lost intellectual world. Standing before it, you are not in the presence of a primitive carving, but a piece of powerful spiritual technology. It is a declaration, carved in wood, that the world is filled with more than just trees and animals. It is filled with faces, spirits, and stories. Let us now take a great leap, leaving the cold forests of Europe behind and traveling south and east to a land that will become a cradle of civilization. We arrive in the Levant, the region that today encompasses Israel, Palestine, Jordan, and Syria. But the landscape you see is not the arid, sun-baked terrain you might picture. 10,000 years ago, this was a land of incredible abundance, a hunter-gatherer's paradise. The hills are covered in open woodlands of oak and pistachio trees. The valleys are lush with vast, dense fields of wild wheat and barley, rippling in the breeze like a golden sea. Herds of gazelle, nimble and numerous, graze on the grasslands. For your ancestors who had endured ice, flood, and forest, this place must have seemed like a gift from the spirits. And here, in this land of plenty, your people make a choice that will alter the course of human history. You decide to stay. For hundreds of thousands of years, the human story has been one of movement, of following the herds and the seasons in a constant nomadic rhythm. But you are a Natufian, and you are a pioneer of a radical new idea: permanence. Why walk for a week to find food when it grows right outside your door? Why follow the herds when they are always within a day's walk? For the first time in history, a significant population of humans gives up the wandering life and builds permanent homes. This is not the agricultural revolution. Not yet. This is the Sedentary Revolution, a profound shift in what it means to be human. Your home is not a temporary hide tent, but a sturdy, semi-subterranean hut. You dig a circular pit into the ground and build up the walls with stone foundations, topping it with a conical roof of timber and thatch. You live in a village, a cluster of these homes, perhaps housing 100 people or more. A day in your life is still one of foraging, but it is foraging from a fixed address. In the morning, you walk out to the fields of wild grain with a sickle, a sharp, serrated series of flint bladelets set in a bone or antler handle, and harvest the plants your ancestors had only ever nibbled on in passing. You bring the grain home and grind it into a coarse flour using a heavy stone, pestle, and mortar, a permanent piece of kitchen equipment too heavy for any nomad to carry. You still hunt the gazelle, but you return each evening to the same hearth, the same bed. You have storage pits lined with plaster, where you keep your surplus grain, a buffer against lean times, and a concept utterly foreign to your wandering cousins. This new lifestyle changes everything, and not always for the better. Suddenly you have neighbors, not just kin, but other families living just a few feet away. For the first time, you have to deal with the timeless problems of settled life, property disputes, accumulated waste, and probably that one family whose kids are always screaming. Living in close quarters means diseases can spread like wildfire. A single infected person can devastate a village. Concepts that were once fluid, like territory, now become rigid. This is our village, our grain field, our hunting ground. The first seeds of social inequality may be sprouting here. Some families, through luck or skill, might have a larger surplus, leading to more influence and status. The complexities and anxieties of civilization are born here, in your little stone village. But your world is also rich with art and ritual that reflect this new permanence. The scientific evidence of your culture shows a love of personal adornment. You create intricate jewelry from bone, animal teeth, and beautiful dentalium shells, which you trade for from the distant coasts of the Red Sea or the Mediterranean. Your most famous and intimate artistic creation is a small calcite cobble, carved to fit perfectly in the hand. We call it the Ein Sacri Lovers. It is the oldest known artistic depiction of a couple making love. It is not monumental or abstract. It is personal, tender, and deeply human. It speaks to a focus on relationships, fertility, and the bonds that make village life possible. Perhaps the most powerful indicator of your new relationship with the world is how you treat your dead. You bury them directly under the floors of your houses. The people you loved in life remain with you in death, their spirits becoming part of the fabric of your home. Sometimes you decorate them with shells or bury them with their favorite dog. This practice is a profound statement. It anchors you to a single place. It says, "This is our home, and it is made sacred by the bones of our ancestors who rest beneath our feet." You no longer just pass through the land. You belong to it, rooted in place by the generations that came before. The paradise you built, your settled Natufian life of plenty, is failing. The world is turning against you. The climate, which had been growing steadily warmer, suddenly and violently snaps back into a deep chill. Remember that planetary whiplash we talked about? The younger dryas? This is you, living through it. The rains stop coming, the air grows cold and dry, and the lush woodlands begin to retreat. The vast, shimmering fields of wild wheat and barley that were the foundation of your new life wither and shrink, becoming patchy and unreliable. The gazelle herds, their grazing lands disappearing, move on, or dwindle in number. The comfortable life you have known is collapsing, and your village is starving. Your choice is stark. Abandon the homes your ancestors are buried beneath, and return to the uncertain, wandering life of your distant forefathers. Or take an even greater risk, and try something entirely new. This is the moment of the great gamble. Perhaps it is a woman, one who knows the grains more intimately than anyone, who has the idea. She has seen how fallen seeds sprout near the village rubbish heap, where the ground is fertile and damp. She has watched how certain plants seem to thrive, while others wither. The idea is simple, yet revolutionary. What if, instead of just finding the grain, we create the grain field? What if we take the seeds from the strongest, most fruitful plants and intentionally put them in the soil near the village spring, where we can tend to them and water them? This is not a flash of genius, a eureka moment. It is a slow, desperate, incremental experiment born of necessity. You are not inventing agriculture. You are just trying to feed your family. The work is harder than you could have ever imagined. It is a relentless, back-breaking toil that consumes your entire year. First, you must clear the land, removing rocks and pulling up stubborn shrubs with nothing but your hands and a sharpened digging stick. Then you till the soil, breaking up the hard, dry earth. You plant the seeds one by one, a prayer whispered over each. And then comes the endless vigilance. You must pull up the weeds that compete with your precious crop. You must guard the fields day and night from hungry birds and foraging animals. And you must bring water from the spring, a constant, heavy burden. Compared to the varied tasks of hunting and gathering, the thrill of the chase, the quiet focus of foraging, this new work is monotonous and exhausting. This transition is one of the most momentous and debated in all of human history. Historians still argue whether agriculture was a brilliant invention or humanity's greatest mistake. On the one hand, it will eventually allow for a massive food surplus, which in turn will fuel population growth, the rise of cities, and all the technological and artistic wonders of civilization. But the costs are immense and immediate. Your diet, once varied and rich with dozens of different plants and animals, is now dangerously dependent on a few cereal crops. The scientific evidence from the bones of the first farmers shows a decline in health. They were shorter, had more nutritional deficiencies, more rotten teeth from the carbohydrate-rich diet, and suffered from new diseases that jumped from their animals and spread through their crowded villages. You have traded quality of life for quantity of calories. And it's not just the plants that you are beginning to control. It is also the animals. The wild goats and sheep that you once hunted in the hills are also struggling in the changed climate. You begin to manage them more actively. Instead of killing every animal you can, you capture some and keep them in enclosures. You kill the aggressive and unruly males first, allowing the more docile ones to breed. Over generations, this simple act of selective pressure begins to change the very nature of the animals. Their bodies get smaller, their brains shrink, and they become more dependent on you for protection. You are not just taming them, you are rewriting their biology. It's a strange co-evolutionary dance. As you domesticate the plants and animals, tying them to your village, you too become domesticated. You are now bound to the endless, cyclical demands of your fields and your flocks. The plants themselves are also changing. A quirky tidbit of this process lies in the very structure of a wheat stalk. In the wild, the rachis, The little stem that holds the seed to the stalk is brittle. This is good for the plant, as it allows the seeds to shatter easily and disperse in the wind. But it's a nightmare for you, the harvester, as most of the grain falls to the ground before you can gather it. But occasionally, a genetic mutation creates a plant with a tough rachis, one that holds on to its seeds. In the wild, this is a disadvantage. But for you, it's a miracle. You gather these mutant plants disproportionately, and it is their seeds you replant the next year. You are unconsciously selecting for this trait. Without understanding genetics, you are actively guiding the evolution of a new species, one that cannot survive without you. You are becoming a farmer. While you are desperately coaxing the first domesticated grains from the dry soil of the southern Levant, your cousins a few hundred miles to the north are engaged in a project of a completely different order of magnitude. Let us travel to the rolling hills of southeastern Anatolia, in modern-day Turkey. Here, on a rounded hilltop with a commanding view of the plains, your fellow hunter-gatherers are doing something that, until its discovery, modern archaeologists would have told you was utterly impossible. They are not building a village. They are building a cathedral. This place is called Göbekli Tepe, and it will completely rewrite the story of civilization. This is not a settlement. There are no houses, no hearths, no signs of domestic life. This is a place of ceremony, a mountain sanctuary built by people who do not yet farm. Imagine the scene. Hundreds of people are working under the hot sun. In a nearby quarry, men are using flint pounders and wooden wedges to painstakingly chip away at the living limestone bedrock, freeing enormous blocks of stone. The largest of these are T-shaped pillars, standing up to 18 feet tall and weighing as much as 20 tons, the equivalent of 3 large African elephants. They have no wheels, no beasts of burden, no metal tools. They move these monoliths using nothing but ropes, logs, levers, and the coordinated muscle power of a huge organized workforce. The project management skills on display here would give a modern construction foreman a nervous breakdown. Let's walk among the structures they have built. You enter one of about 20 circular enclosures that have been excavated so far. The outer wall is made of rough-hewn stone, but the inner space is dominated by those elegantly carved T-shaped pillars, standing like silent, watchful sentinels. Their surfaces are not blank. They are covered in a stunning menagerie of animal figures, carved in high relief with incredible skill. You see snarling foxes, slithering snakes, ferocious boars, and long-legged cranes. Vultures, symbols of death and transformation, are a common motif. This is a vibrant, symbolic world, a snapshot of the potent animal spirits that inhabit their cosmology. Then you notice a truly strange and quirky detail. On the sides of the broad pillars, you can make out the faint outlines of human arms, angled at the elbow, with long, slender fingers wrapping around the front. These pillars are not just stone posts. They are stylized representations of powerful, non-human beings, their animal-covered bodies draped in what look like loincloths. Are they gods? Ancestors? Shamans in ceremonial dress? We do not know. So, what is this place? For what purpose did hunter-gatherers expend such a colossal amount of effort? Archaeologists fiercely debate its purpose, but many believe it was a regional pilgrimage center, a place for rituals and feasts. Scientific evidence from the site includes vast quantities of animal bones, gazelle, aurochs, boar, all showing signs of massive feasts, far more than a single band of hunters could consume. They also found huge stone troughs that may have been used for brewing a simple, beer-like alcoholic beverage from fermented wild grains. This was humanity's first great party place, a ritual center where different clans and tribes from all over the region could gather. But here is the truly revolutionary idea that Göbekli Tepe presents. For a century, we believed the story of civilization went like this. First, people invented agriculture, which created a food surplus, which then allowed them to settle down and have the free time to build temples and develop complex societies. Göbekli Tepe flips that script completely on its head. Here, we have hunter-gatherers building a massive, complex temple before the invention of agriculture. This has led to a mind-bending new theory. What if it was the other way around? What if the intense social and logistical demands of building this temple, the need to organize and, crucially, to feed the hundreds of workers who gathered here, was the very motivation that spurred the development of farming in the surrounding plains? Perhaps the desire to come together, to feast, and to participate in a shared spiritual project was the real catalyst for the agricultural revolution. Maybe it wasn't a desperate search for calories that changed the world, but a shared search for meaning. Imagine the scene during a great gathering. Your band has traveled for weeks to be here. As you approach the hill, you see dozens of other campfires, hear the sounds of drums and unfamiliar dialects. This is a prehistoric Woodstock. You come together to work on the great temple, to honor the spirits, and to feast. You trade obsidian from one mountain for shells from a distant sea. Elders arrange marriages between different groups, strengthening alliances. Shamans and storytellers share their myths and their magic. In this great collaborative act of construction and ceremony, a new, larger form of human society is being forged, one that transcends the small, local band and lays the groundwork for the world to come. While the hunter-gatherers of the north express their spiritual world by building a great temple on a lonely hill, you, the farmers of the southern Levant, are creating a different kind of revolution. Your experiment with agriculture is a success. The grains you planted have taken root, and so have you. Let's journey down into the deep, warm basin of the Jordan Valley, to a place blessed with a constant, life-giving spring. Here, one of the old Natufian villages has not just survived. It has grown into something new and formidable. This is the ancient mound of Tel-es-Sultan, the place that will one day be known as Jericho. It is arguably the world's first town. Your life here is one of settled agricultural rhythm. You live in a dense cluster of circular houses, packed closely together. The construction has evolved from your ancestors' simple huts. Now, you build sturdy homes from loaf-shaped mud bricks set upon stone foundations with plastered floors that are often stained red. You are a full-time farmer, cultivating your fields of emmer wheat, barley, and pulses outside the settlement. The sounds and smells are of a community, 1,000 or more people living shoulder to shoulder. The chatter of your neighbors, the bleating of the goats you are beginning to herd, the constant rhythmic grinding of grain on stone. It is in this crowded, permanent settlement that the very first property disputes were probably born. What makes your home truly astonishing, what sets it apart as something new in the human story, are the monumental structures you have built around it. A massive stone wall, over 10 feet high and 6 feet thick, encircles your town. Just inside it, you have constructed an imposing stone tower, a solid, conical structure nearly 30 feet high and 30 feet wide at its base, with a steep internal staircase leading to the top. The sheer scale of this public works project is staggering. It would have taken tens of thousands of man-hours to quarry the stones and wrestle them into place. This is a mainstream historical fact that signals a level of social organization, a leader or council that could direct a large, communal labor force, far beyond that of any previous settlement. But why build it? For what purpose did the world's first town need such massive fortifications? Historians have long argued whether these were for defense against human enemies or, as some now suggest, a massive flood control system. The defensive argument points to the potential for raids from hungry nomadic groups, jealous of your stored grain. The flood control theory suggests the wall was built to protect the town from the powerful flash floods that can sweep down the valley. The tower's purpose is even more mysterious. Was it a watchtower, a ceremonial center, a symbol of the town's power and prestige? Whatever its function, it stands as a testament to your community's ability to think big and work together. Even more fascinating than what you built is how you lived with your dead. The scientific evidence for your spiritual life is both intimate and, to us, deeply strange. You continue your ancestral tradition of burying your relatives beneath the floors of your homes. But you have added a new, extraordinary step to the ritual. Sometime after burial, you reopen the grave and carefully remove the skull of your deceased loved one. Then, with great skill and tenderness, you fill the hollows of the skull with plaster, carefully sculpting the features of the face, the nose, the cheeks, the mouth, to recreate their living likeness. For the eyes, you press in cowrie shells, giving the face a serene, otherworldly gaze. This plastered skull, this haunting effigy, is not reburied. It is kept in the house with you. You live your daily life in the silent, watchful company of your ancestors. This practice is your quirky and profound tidbit, a window into a powerful ancestor cult. These are not just morbid decorations. They are a way of collapsing time, of keeping the wisest and most respected members of your lineage present and active in the lives of the community. They are consulted, revered, and cared for. They are the living embodiment of your connection to the past and your claim to this specific place. In Jericho, you see a new way of being human taking shape. A large, permanent population, monumental public works, a complex ritual life, and an organized labor force. It is the blueprint for the city, the seed of a future that will one day be filled with sprawling metropolises, a future that begins right here, in this small, walled town beside a desert spring. Let us now leave Asia and travel southwest, across the lands that will one day be Egypt, and into the heart of a region you think you know. Wipe from your mind the image of a vast, scorching desert of endless sand dunes. Erase the Sahara you see in movies and documentaries. The world you are entering now, 10,000 years ago, is a different planet. You are living in the middle of the African humid period, a remarkable climatic phase that has transformed the world's greatest desert into a sprawling, vibrant savanna. This is a scientific fact, confirmed by geological data from ancient lake beds and pollen cores. For several thousand years, the monsoon rains that today fall much further south have shifted north, creating a Sahara that is green, wet, and teeming with life. This is your world, and it is a hunter's paradise. Great shallow lakes, some the size of small seas, shimmer where today there is only sand. Winding rivers, their banks lined with acacia and tamarisk trees, carve paths across the plains, and the plains themselves are covered in tall grasses and dotted with woodlands, supporting an incredible diversity of life. You see herds of elephants making their way to the water's edge. you watch elegant giraffes nibbling the tops of the trees. The rivers are home to grunting hippos and the silent, watchful menace of crocodiles. This is the Africa of the safari, but it is happening in the middle of the Sahara. You are a person of the Capsian culture, a society of hunters, fishers, and gatherers who are flourishing in this temporary Eden. A day in your life is governed by the rhythms of the lake you have set your camp beside. You wake to the sound of 1,000 birds in the reeds. Your band lives in a large, semi-permanent camp, a collection of simple huts made from branches and grasses. In the morning, some of your people will head out onto the plains to hunt the gazelle, hartebeest, and even the formidable buffalo that graze there. Your weapons are sophisticated, featuring the same kind of tiny, geometric microliths we have seen elsewhere, which you use to tip your arrows and spears. Others will take to the water with sharp bone hooks and barbed harpoons to fish for the giant perch that live in the lakes. Meanwhile, you might be gathering the wild sorghum and millet that grows in abundance, grains that your descendants, thousands of years from now, will learn to domesticate. Your most iconic and useful possession is an ostrich egg. The ostrich is a common sight on the plains, and its enormous egg is a gift. It is a perfect natural container. After eating the contents, you carefully drill a hole in the top and use the hollow shell as a water bottle, a canteen that is both light and durable. This is your quirky and practical tidbit. You don't just use them, you decorate them. You etch the surfaces with fine, geometric patterns, lines, dashes, and cross-hatching, turning a simple, functional object into a piece of personal art, a marker of your identity. Like your distant cousins, the Azilians in Spain, you have also developed a serious taste for snails. The scientific evidence for your diet is piled up in enormous mounds near your campsites. Archaeologists call them escargotières, literally snail eyries. These are kitchen middens, ancient heaps of discarded shells that, in some cases, are over 100 meters long and several meters high. The sheer quantity of snails consumed is mind-boggling, testifying to your people's skill at exploiting every available resource, not just the big, glamorous game. It proves that you have found a reliable, predictable food source that allows your population to grow and thrive in one place for long periods. And you are not simple, isolated nomads. The size of your camps and the massive shell middens suggest you are living a much more settled life, staying in one place for extended seasons, if not the whole year. You are part of a larger social world. The decorative beads you wear are made from shells that have come from the distant Mediterranean or Red Sea coasts, hundreds of miles away. The high-quality flint you use for your finest tools comes from specific quarries, and its presence in camps far from the source tells a story of trade, travel, and connection. A vibrant network of communities exists across this Green Sahara, a web of kinship and exchange that we can only glimpse through the artifacts you left behind. You are not just surviving, you are building a complex and successful society in the heart of a blooming desert. Your life in this Green Sahara is rich, not just in food, but in spirit. To understand your inner world, we must journey away from the open lakeside camps and go deep into the heart of the desert, to a vast, high plateau in what is now southeastern Algeria. This is Tassili Nadjer, a place of stunning, otherworldly beauty. It's a stone labyrinth, a forest of eroded sandstone pillars, arches and canyons that have been sculpted by wind and ancient water into fantastic shapes. This is your cathedral, and its rock faces are your canvas. You are an artist, a storyteller, a keeper of sacred knowledge. and you are about to paint your world onto the stone. You belong to what we now call the Roundhead period, the earliest and most mysterious phase of Saharan rock art. Your paintings are not simple stick figures or outlines of animals. They are fluid, dreamlike, and deeply strange. Let's step into one of these rock shelters and see your work. On one wall, you have painted figures that seem to float or swim through the rock, their bodies elongated and graceful. These famous swimming figures, found in the nearby Cave of Swimmers, are a beautiful testament to your life in a water-filled world. But elsewhere, the figures are far more bizarre. You have painted huge beings, sometimes twice the size of a normal person, floating in space. Their heads are large, round, and blank, often adorned with horns or strange antennae. Their bodies are sometimes decorated with patterns of dots and lines. Who are these strange beings? A fringe theory, popular in sensationalist documentaries, might tell you these are depictions of ancient astronauts, helmeted visitors from another world. Frankly, it seems that any time an ancient artist created something that doesn't look like a tax form, someone will claim it was aliens. A far more likely and profound explanation is that you are painting the world of spirits. These are not visitors from another planet, but from another dimension, a spiritual reality that is all around you. These are the powerful beings a shaman encounters during a trance, the gods of the hunt, or the great ancestral spirits of your people. You are not just decorating a cave, you are creating a portal, making the invisible spirit world visible. Your tools and materials are simple, gathered from the earth itself. The scientific evidence of your craft is in the paint's composition. Your red, yellow, and brown pigments come from ochre, a type of iron-rich clay that you grind into a fine powder. Your black is made from charcoal, crushed from the embers of your fire. Your white comes from kaolin clay or crushed bird droppings. To turn these powders into paint, you mix them with a binder, perhaps egg yolk, plant sap, or animal fat, to create a liquid that will adhere to the rock. You are a versatile artist. Sometimes you apply the paint with your fingers, smearing it to create soft, ethereal forms. Other times you use a delicate brush made from feathers or chewed twigs to paint fine details. You might even fill your mouth with liquid paint and spray it through a hollow reed, using your hand as a stencil to create the negative imprints that are a hallmark of rock art around the world. What does it all mean? What is the purpose of this vast outdoor art gallery? This is not art for art's sake. These images are functional, powerful, and essential to the spiritual health of your community. They are the visual scripture of your people. The hunting scenes are not just memories. They are magical rituals to ensure future success. The strange floating figures are part of complex myths, stories of creation and the ordering of the cosmos that are told and retold in front of these very images. The paintings are a bridge, a way to communicate with the spirits, to honor them, and to draw upon their power to bring rain, heal the sick, and maintain the harmony of the world. But as you paint, the world is changing. A deep sense of melancholy begins to creep into the story. The air is getting drier. The monsoon rains are becoming less reliable. The lakes are beginning to shrink, and the rivers are starting to disappear. The vibrant green world you have known your entire life is starting to fade, the relentless yellow of the desert nibbling at its edges. You don't know it, but the African humid period is coming to an end. Your descendants will not be able to live here. They will be forced to migrate, to retreat from the encroaching sands, taking their memories, their beliefs, and their genes with them. Many will follow the last remaining rivers east, toward a narrow, fertile valley called the Nile, where they will help lay the foundations for a civilization that will one day build the pyramids. Your art is the final, vibrant testament to a lost green world. The spiritual art of the Sahara shows us one face of humanity 10,000 years ago. Creative, symbolic, and deeply connected to a world of unseen forces. But there is another, darker face. To see it, we must journey south from the drying Sahara into the Great Rift Valley, to the shores of a vast lake in what is now Kenya. 10,000 years ago, the area around Lake Turkana was a lush, fertile lagoon, a perfect environment for a community of fisher-hunter-gatherers. The water provided abundant fish and birds, and the surrounding land was rich with game. It was a good place to live, and for one group of people, it was a terrible place to die. Let's step into the scene of a discovery made just a few years ago at a site called Nataruk. Here, scattered on an ancient land surface and preserved by the gentle sediments of the lagoon, archaeologists found the remains of at least 27 people. They were not buried. There are no graves, no careful arrangement of the bodies, no ritual offerings. The skeletons lie where they fell, contorted and broken. This was not a cemetery. This was a massacre. You are now a witness to the oldest known example of organized, lethal conflict between two groups of hunter-gatherers. The scientific evidence is written on the bones, a silent forensic testimony to a moment of extreme violence. Let's look closer. Here lies the skeleton of a man. A tiny, razor-sharp bladelet of obsidian, a volcanic glass not native to this specific area, is still embedded in the side of his skull. Two more are lodged in his chest cavity. He was shot with arrows from the front and side. Over here is another man, his skull showing two massive fractures from a club, one to his forehead and another to his cheek, delivered with enough force to shatter the bone. Nearby lies a woman in the final stages of pregnancy. Her skeleton is in an unusual position that suggests her hands and feet were bound before she was killed. She and the unborn child within her were shown no mercy. 10 of the 12 complete skeletons found show unmistakable signs of a violent death. Skulls smashed by clubs, arrowheads in the chest, knees and hands deliberately shattered. Who were they? And who were their attackers? This is a profound mystery. They were a band of hunter-gatherers, living a settled life by the rich resources of the lagoon. They even had pottery, a rare possession for non-farmers. The attackers are ghosts. We only know them by the wounds they left behind. And the motive is the subject of intense scholarly debate. Archaeologists still debate the motive. Was it a fight over resources, territory, water, food? Or was it a more routine, albeit brutal, encounter between two different social groups? Perhaps the lagoon at Nataruk was a particularly rich spot, a prize worth killing for in a time of changing climate and shifting populations. Here is a quirky and chilling tidbit that deepens the mystery. Robbery does not seem to have been the motive. The victims were not stripped of their possessions. Some still have personal ornaments on their bodies. They were not butchered for food. They were simply annihilated. This wasn't a raid that went wrong. This was an extermination. The attackers came with the express purpose of killing every man, woman, and child they could find. This level of calculated brutality forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of humanity itself. For a long time, many thinkers imagined that warfare was a product of civilization, an evil that only arose after people started farming, owning land, and creating states. In this view, Your hunter-gatherer ancestors lived in a state of primitive innocence, a noble savage, free from the corrupting influence of property. Nataruk is a brutal counter-argument. This mainstream historical fact provides the earliest, clearest evidence that organized group violence, the very root of warfare, existed long before the first farm or the first king. It suggests that the capacity for xenophobia, for seeing another group as other and wanting to destroy them, may be a much older and more deeply ingrained part of the human story than we would like to believe. The skeletons of Nataruk are a sobering reminder that your world, for all its beauty and creativity, was not a peaceful Eden. It was a place where your small band had to be constantly vigilant, because the greatest danger in the landscape might not have been a lion or a snake, but the other people on the far side of the hill. From the tragic scene at Nataruk, let us make one final journey on the African continent, traveling thousands of miles to its southernmost tip. Here, in the lands that will become South Africa, Botswana, and Namibia, the dramatic, climate-driven booms and busts of the Sahara are felt as gentler echoes. This is a region of incredible stability, and it is home to a people whose roots are arguably the deepest in all of humanity. You are one of the ancestors of the Khoisan peoples, and genetic evidence confirms that your lineage represents one of the oldest and most distinct branches on the human family tree. Your people have been here for over 100,000 years. While others are grappling with the shock of the new, your way of life is one of deep, unbroken continuity. Your world is one of rocky outcrops, sparse grasslands, and arid scrubland. You are a hunter-gatherer, but your methods are honed by millennia of experience in this specific environment. You are a master of a technique that is almost superhuman, a testament to what the human body is truly capable of. This is persistence hunting. You do not have the speed of the antelope you hunt, nor its leaping ability. You have something far more valuable, the ability to sweat, a mind that can think in the future, and relentless, unimaginable endurance. The hunt begins. You and your band single out a kudu or a springbok. The chase is on, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. The animal sprints away, then rests in the shade. You do not sprint. You run at a steady, ground-eating trot, tracking its footprints in the sand, never letting it rest long enough to cool down. Under the relentless midday sun, the animal, unable to sweat effectively, begins to overheat. Hour after hour, you pursue it, your own body cooled by the miracle of perspiration. Eventually, the animal, exhausted and suffering from hypothermia, stumbles to a halt. You have not outrun it. You have out-endured it. It's the original ultra-marathon, except the prize at the end is dinner, not a medal. Your inner world is as complex as your hunting methods. Your language is rich with the delicate, percussive sounds of click consonants, a linguistic feature that fascinates modern scholars. Your social life is governed by an intricate, egalitarian system of kinship and sharing that ensures the group's survival. But the most profound window we have into your mind is the art you created. Magnificent galleries of paintings on the rock faces of the Drakensberg Mountains and the Cederberg Wilderness. The style here is different from the dreamlike figures of the Sahara. Your art is filled with elegant, naturalistic depictions of the animals that share your world, particularly the eland. The eland, the largest of the antelopes, is not just a source of food for you. It is the center of your spiritual universe, a creature imbued with a special potency and power. But alongside the animals, you paint stranger things. You paint human figures, but they are often contorted, bleeding from the nose and sprouting animal features. The head of a buck, the legs of a bird. These are therianthropes, part human, part animal beings, caught in a moment of transformation. For centuries, the meaning of this art was a mystery. But thanks to the ethnographic work done with modern San communities, we now have the key. This is not just art. It is a spiritual textbook. It is a depiction of the shaman's journey. This is your quirky and profound tidbit. The art shows what it feels like to enter the spirit world. Your community's shaman, a spiritual specialist, would enter a trance state, often through the rhythmic power of a communal dance. In this state, they would feel a potent energy awaken within them. The paintings show the physical signs of this experience. The shamans would often get a nosebleed, a detail depicted over and over in the art. They would feel themselves transforming, their legs becoming weak as they metaphorically left the human world. They would fly to the spirit world to heal the sick, to make rain, or to confront malevolent spirits. The therianthropic figures are the shamans themselves, captured in the very act of their spiritual metamorphosis. The art is a map of the shaman's trance, a guide to the other side. Through these paintings, you have left us the clearest and most detailed record of a hunter-gatherer spiritual experience anywhere in the world, an echo from the deepest parts of our shared human past. For the past several nights, we have been journeying across the globe, visiting different peoples in different landscapes. But now, we are going to pause our geographical tour to follow the story of a single, crucial character who has been silently padding along in the background of almost every scene. This character is not human, but without them, the human story might have been very different. We are going to follow the tracks of your first and greatest friend, the dog. This partnership is not a new development in your world of 10,000 years ago. It is already an ancient and deeply established bond that has spread with humans across the planet. To find its origins, we must travel further back in time, to the cold, mammoth-stalked plains of the late Ice Age, perhaps 30,000 years ago. Imagine two intelligent social predators, both hunting the same large prey. One is your human ancestor, the other is the grey wolf. You are competitors, but you are also mirrors of each other. You both hunt in cooperative packs, you both have complex social hierarchies, and you are both raising families. A cautious respect develops. The wolves begin to shadow your hunting parties, scavenging the remains of your kills. You, in turn, observe the wolves, learning from their superior tracking skills. The process of domestication that follows is not a story of conquest, of a brave hunter snatching a wolf cub from its den. The current scientific evidence suggests a more subtle and fascinating process of self-domestication. Around your camps, you leave rubbish heaps. Bones, scraps of fat, and discarded bits of food. For a starving wolf, this is a buffet. But most wolves are naturally fearful of humans. Only the boldest, or perhaps the most desperate and least aggressive individuals, dare to creep close to the firelight to scavenge. Over many, many generations, a feedback loop begins. The wolves with a shorter flight distance, those less prone to fear and aggression, get more food. They survive better and pass on their tamer genes to their offspring. You are, in effect, creating a new kind of wolf, a camp wolf that is becoming genetically different from its wilder cousins. A proto-dog. Now let's return to your world 10,000 years ago. This process is complete. The animal sleeping by your fire is no longer a wolf. It is a dog. It is not a pet in our modern, pampered sense. It is a vital working partner, a furry, four-legged multi-tool. It is your alarm system, its keen ears and nose detecting the approach of a predator or a stranger long before your human senses can. It's a huge advantage having a living security system that also happens to enjoy belly rubs. It is your hunting companion, essential for tracking wounded prey or cornering dangerous game like the moose we saw in the northern forests. It is a sanitation crew, cleaning the camp of scraps that might attract larger, more dangerous scavengers. It is a living blanket, a source of warmth for your children on a freezing night. And in the most desperate of times, it can even be an emergency source of food. The emotional bond is already ancient and profound. The oldest undisputed evidence of this relationship is the mainstream historical fact of the Born-Oberkassel burial, found in Germany and dated to a staggering 14,000 years ago. Here, a dog was carefully buried alongside a man and a woman, a companion even in death. Evidence from its teeth suggests it was sick as a puppy and likely would not have survived without human care. This is not the way you treat a tool. This is how you treat a member of the family. This partnership changed you as much as it changed the wolf. The dog's senses became an extension of your own, widening your awareness of the world. And it created the first bridge across the species divide, a new kind of interspecies communication and empathy. A quirky tidbit is that even after decades of research, the precise origin of this revolutionary partnership is still a mystery. Scholars, armed with new genetic evidence, still fiercely debate whether the dog was born once, in a single event, or had multiple origins across Eurasia. One set of genes points to an origin in East Asia, another to Europe. It's possible this miracle of coevolution happened at least twice, independently. By your time, 10,000 years ago, this partnership is a global success story. Wherever humans have gone, from the frozen shores of the Arctic to the tip of South America, they have taken their dogs with them. This animal is the silent witness and active participant in every story we have told so far, and in every story yet to come. With your canine friend padding faithfully at your heels, we now journey east, leaving the Fertile Crescent and the plains of Africa far behind. We arrive in another great, independent cradle of innovation, a land defined by two mighty rivers. This is the world that will one day become China. Here, in the fertile basins of the Yangtze and Yellow Rivers, a story is unfolding that runs parallel to the agricultural revolution in the West, but it follows its own unique script, with a completely different cast of characters. There is no wheat or barley here. Instead, your people are forging a new relationship with two other remarkable plants, rice and millet. First, let's travel to the south, a world of warmth, humidity, and water. You live in a small village on the banks of the Pearl or Yangtze River. The landscape is a lush, subtropical mosaic of dense forests and sprawling wetlands. For thousands of years, your ancestors have foraged for the wild rice that grows in the shallows. But now you are beginning to intervene, to nudge nature along. It begins simply. You clear the other competing reeds and weeds from around the most productive stands of wild rice, giving it a better chance to thrive. You learn the subtle art of water management, building small earthen dams to keep the rice paddy wet for longer. It is a slow, incremental process of observation and co-evolution. You are not conquering nature. You are entering into a delicate, demanding partnership with a single species of grass. This is not easy work. It is a life of wet feet and an aching back, spent wading through the muddy, leech-filled water, tending to your precious plants. But the reward is a grain that will eventually feed billions of people. You are at the very beginning of that journey, learning the rhythms of a plant that will transform the landscape and shape the destiny of a continent. Now let us travel 1,000 miles north to the colder, drier climate of the Yellow River Basin. Here, the landscape is one of wind-swept loess plains, a fine, yellow, fertile soil blown in from the Gobi Desert. Rice cannot grow here, but another plant can: millet. You are a northern farmer, and your life is different. You are domesticating foxtail and broomcorn millet, two hardy, drought-resistant grasses that are perfectly suited to this environment. You clear small plots of land with stone tools, planting your millet in the spring and harvesting its small, bead-like grains in the autumn. It lacks the glamour of rice, perhaps, but its resilience is its strength. How do we know all this? The scientific evidence is often microscopic. Archaeologists analyze the residue on the inside of ancient pots, finding the chemical signatures of the foods that were cooked within them. They also study phytoliths, tiny, durable silica structures that form inside plant cells. Each plant has a uniquely shaped phytolith, like a microscopic fingerprint, allowing scientists to identify which plants you were harvesting and eating even 10,000 years later. And your culinary legacy is profound. A quirky tidbit. Though much later, from this same region, archaeologists unearthed a 4,000-year-old bowl of perfectly preserved noodles, the oldest in the world, made from the very millet you are now learning to cultivate. Crucially, your journey into agriculture is aided by a technology that your cousins in the Near East did not yet have at this stage: pottery. This is a mainstream historical fact that represents a key difference in this part of the world. Pottery was not invented by farmers here. It was invented by your hunter-gatherer ancestors more than 20,000 years ago, long before anyone thought to plant a seed. They used it to boil shellfish, snails, and render fat from animal bones. Now, you repurpose this ancient technology for a new world. A simple clay pot is the key that unlocks the full potential of your new grain-based diet. It allows you to boil rice and millet into a soft, digestible porridge, arguably the first comfort food in history. Boiling also detoxifies certain plants and makes the nutrients in the grains more available to your body. Your story here in East Asia is a powerful reminder that there is no single path to civilization. You did not follow the script written in the Fertile Crescent. You had a different climate, different plants, and a different technological starting point with your ancient knowledge of pottery. You forged your own distinct agricultural revolution, a testament to the endless ingenuity and adaptability of the human spirit, whether your hands are tending to the flooded paddies of the south or the dusty fields of the north. Let us now travel across the water from the Asian mainland to an archipelago of mountainous, forest-covered islands. The same rising seas that drowned Doggerland and created the islands of Indonesia have recently severed this land from the continent, turning it into a world of its own. This is the land that will become Japan, and for the next several thousand years, it will be home to one of the most remarkable and unique cultures of the ancient world. You are one of the Jomon people, and your story challenges almost everything we thought we knew about the path of human progress. The great rule we have seen so far is that if you want to live in a large, permanent village and develop complex art and technology, you have to become a farmer. It's the trade-off. You accept the back-breaking labor of agriculture in exchange for the surplus needed to sustain a settled life. But you, the Jomon, have found a way to break that rule. You are the great exception. This is the mainstream historical fact about your culture. You achieve a rich, complex, and largely sedentary society for thousands of years, all without domesticating a single plant or animal, save for your faithful dog. You are hunter-gatherer foragers who live in villages. How is this possible? You live in a land of almost unimaginable natural abundance. The new, warmer climate has covered the islands in dense, temperate rainforests, a paradise of edible resources. Vast groves of chestnut, walnut, and especially oak trees provide a massive, reliable, and storable harvest of nuts each autumn. The forests are also full of deer, boar, and edible plants, and the sea that surrounds you is just as generous. The coastline is a convoluted maze of bays and inlets, and the meeting of warm and cold ocean currents creates some of the richest fishing grounds on the planet. You harvest salmon, trout, and tuna from the sea, and gather colossal mounds of shellfish from the shore. Your diet would make a modern nutritionist weep with joy. A day in your life is one of skilled and varied work. Your village is a collection of pit houses dug into the earth for insulation and roofed with timber and thatch. You live here year-round. Your morning might be spent checking your fishing nets or setting out in a dugout canoe to harpoon a sea bream. Later, you might venture into the forest to manage the nut groves. You don't plant the trees, but you weed around the most productive ones, ensuring a good harvest. A major part of your life revolves around your most famous technology, pottery. Your people, the Joman, are named after the distinctive pottery you create. Joman means cord-marked, which describes the intricate patterns you press into the wet clay using twisted cords and bamboo sticks. The scientific evidence of your pottery is astonishing, because it is among the oldest in the world, with the earliest examples dating back over 16,000 years, long before your cousins in Jericho built their tower. Your pots are not just beautiful, they are the key to your unique way of life. They allow you to boil foods, which is crucial. Many of the acorns you gather are full of bitter, indigestible tannic acid. By boiling them, sometimes for days, you leach out the toxins and transform them into a nutritious, storable flour. Your pots allow you to cook hearty fish stews and to store your huge autumn harvest of nuts to see you through the winter. Your spiritual world is as rich and unique as your diet. You leave behind one of the most enigmatic artifacts of prehistory, the Dogu. This is your quirky and fascinating tidbit. These are small humanoid figurines made of clay, but they don't look like any normal human. They have wide, flaring hips, elaborate hairstyles, and most distinctively, huge, round eyes that look like a pair of snow goggles. Most Dogu appear to be female, and many are found deliberately broken. What are they? Are they representations of a great mother goddess, a deity of fertility and childbirth? Are they effigies used by shamans to travel to the spirit world? Or were they used in healing rituals, with the ailment being transferred to the doll before it was ritually broken and discarded? We don't know, but they are a powerful glimpse into a symbolic world utterly unlike any other. You, the Joman people, are a profound lesson in human history. You demonstrate that the hunter-gatherer life was not a primitive, miserable stage that everyone was desperate to escape. Given the right environment, it could be a sophisticated, sustainable, and deeply satisfying way of life, capable of supporting large communities and a rich artistic and spiritual culture for millennia. You prove that agriculture was not the only road to a complex society. You took a different path, a path of deep engagement with the wild abundance of the forest and the sea. Our journey now takes us to a vast triangular landmass that thrusts into the Indian Ocean, the Indian subcontinent. This is not a single uniform landscape, but a world of immense diversity, containing everything from the snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas to lush tropical coastlines, arid deserts, and dense jungles. For tens of thousands of years, this has been a major stage for the human story, and 10,000 years ago, it is a place of deep tradition and radical new beginnings. Let's travel first to the western edge of this world, to the fertile plains at the foot of the mountains in what is now Pakistan. Here, at a place called Mehrgarh, another Neolithic revolution is taking root, largely independent of the one we saw in the Fertile Crescent. This is a mainstream historical fact that underscores how the idea of farming was an idea whose time had come in many places at once. You are one of the first inhabitants of Mehrgarh, living in a small, well-organized village of rectangular mud brick houses. Like the people of Jericho, you are learning to cultivate wheat and barley, grains whose wild ancestors grew in the nearby hills. But you are also doing something uniquely your own. While the people of the Near East were domesticating goats and sheep, your primary focus is on a different animal: cattle. The scientific evidence from the animal bones found at your settlement tells a fascinating story. You are herding the local, humped zebu cattle, a species perfectly adapted to the hot, semi-arid climate of southern Asia. This is your quirky and significant tidbit. The fact that you domesticated a local bovine species, rather than simply importing the idea of herding from elsewhere, shows that your community was a center of innovation in its own right. You are not just a student of the Neolithic Revolution, you are one of its teachers. Your village at Mehrgarh will grow and thrive for thousands of years, laying the agricultural foundation for the great civilizations that will later rise in the Indus Valley. Now let's leave the neat mud brick houses of the first farmers and travel deep into the heart of the subcontinent, to a range of low, forested hills in central India. Here, we find the Bhimbetka rock shelters, a place that is not a village, but a vast natural art gallery. This is a landscape that breathes deep time. The sandstone shelters here have been used by humans for over 100,000 years, and their walls are covered with paintings layered on top of paintings, a continuous artistic record from the deepest parts of the Stone Age right up to the medieval period. Let's focus on the art that you and your contemporaries are creating 10,000 years ago. The style is vibrant, energetic, and full of movement. You paint in shades of red and white, creating dynamic scenes filled with slender, stick-like figures. And the subject of your art is, overwhelmingly, the life of the community. Where other cultures we've visited painted individual spirit beings or rows of symbolic animals, you paint the grand, chaotic, and joyful spectacle of your social world. You cover the rock walls with enormous scenes of communal hunts, with dozens of men working together, armed with spears and bows, to chase down bison, boar, and deer. You paint scenes of celebration, lines of people linking arms in exuberant communal dances, their movements so full of life you can almost hear the drums and the singing. Judging by the paintings, you threw some truly epic parties, but you also paint the darker side of community life. You create scenes of conflict, organized battles between rival groups of archers, just like the ones we saw in Spain. Your art is a comprehensive record of your life, a celebration of the ties that bind your people together, in cooperation and in conflict. It is a worldview that seems to be less focused on individual shamanic journeys or abstract symbols, and more on the tangible lived experience of the group. So, Here on the subcontinent, 10,000 years ago, we see humanity with a foot in two different worlds. In the west, at Merha, you are tying your destiny to a few species of plants and animals, laying the foundations of a settled agricultural future. You are building permanent houses and beginning the slow, patient work of a farmer. But here in the center, at Bimbetka, you are celebrating the vibrant, dynamic, and ancient life of the hunter-gatherer. You are running with the herd, dancing under the stars, and capturing the energy of your community in timeless paintings on the rock. It is a continent and a species in the midst of a profound transition. Let us now journey southeast from the Indian subcontinent into the warm, humid heart of the tropical world. Here, we will witness the same great global drama of the rising seas that we saw in Doggerland, but played out on an even grander stage and in a completely different environment. You are standing on the edge of a dense rainforest. The air is thick, wet, and alive with the buzz of insects and the calls of unseen birds. You live on a vast, low-lying continent that we call Sunderland. But your continent is dying. The sea is coming, and your world is slowly, inexorably drowning. For thousands of years, Sunderland has been a single, continuous landmass, connecting what will one day be the Malay Peninsula, Sumatra, Java, and Borneo. But now, the melting of the great ice sheets thousands of miles away is causing the sea to creep inland year after year. The process is slow, a saltwater flood that takes generations. First, the lowest lying areas become vast mangrove swamps. Then the rivers turn brackish and wide, until finally, the high ground you are standing on becomes a new coastline, and the mountains that were once a day's walk away are now hazy blue islands on the horizon. You are a person of the Hoabinian tradition, a widespread culture of hunter-gatherer foragers, perfectly adapted to this tropical world. Your toolkit is simple and effective, often based around a distinctive type of stone tool made from a river pebble, flaked on one side to create a sharp, durable chopping edge. You are a master of the forest, gathering yams, taro, and fruits, and hunting the deer and pigs that live in the jungle. But increasingly, you are becoming a master of the sea. As the land shrinks, the water offers a new and endless bounty. Your people have become expert mariners, building bamboo rafts and dugout canoes to navigate the changing coastline and the newly formed straits between islands. Your people's relationship with the sea is not new. It is ancient and incredibly sophisticated. The most stunning scientific evidence for this comes from a place called Jerimale Cave in East Timor, an island that was never connected to the mainland. Here, archaeologists found fish bones that tell an incredible story. This is a mainstream historical fact that rewrites our timeline of human ingenuity. Over 42,000 years ago, the ancestors of your people were practicing deep-sea fishing. They were catching fast-moving open ocean fish like tuna. This is not something you can do by casting a line from the shore. This requires proper boats, skill, and a profound knowledge of the ocean, its currents, and the behavior of its creatures. Your command of the sea is not a recent adaptation. It is a skill you have been honing for tens of thousands of years. As you adapt to this changing world, you also begin to form a new and fateful partnership with one of the local animals. This is your quirky and world-changing tidbit. In the jungles here lives the red jungle fowl, a colorful, noisy, and aggressive bird. You begin to capture and keep them. Your initial motivation is probably not for a steady supply of meat. A far more likely reason is for cockfighting, a ritual and social spectacle of combat between two males. Or perhaps you simply appreciate them as a convenient, self-replicating alarm clock that lets you know when the sun is rising. A fresh supply of eggs is also a pretty good bonus. Without realizing it, you are beginning the long process of domesticating the chicken, an animal that will one day spread to every corner of the globe and become the most numerous bird on the planet. By your time, 10,000 years ago, the great transformation of your world is nearly complete. The single continent of Sunderland is gone, replaced by a vast archipelago of thousands of islands. The people who were once your inland neighbors are now separated from you by miles of open water. This great geographical fragmentation will have a profound effect on the human story in this region. Isolated on different islands, your descendants will develop in their own unique ways, creating the astonishing tapestry of distinct cultures and languages that will characterize Indonesia and the Philippines for millennia. You did not just survive the flood. You sailed through it, adapted to it, and in the process laid the foundations for a new and far more diverse human world. From the newly formed islands of Southeast Asia, we make one last great sea crossing, traveling south to an ancient, isolated continent. This is Sahul, the combined landmass of Australia and New Guinea, a world that has been on its own evolutionary path for millions of years. Your people have been here for an immense amount of time, at least 65,000 years, more than twice as long as humans have been in the Americas. In this long, deep isolation, in one of the most challenging environments on Earth, your culture has developed a completely different kind of genius, a way of being human that is unlike any other. You are not a farmer in the traditional sense, but you are no passive forager either. You are an engineer of the entire ecosystem. Your most powerful tool is fire. This is the mainstream historical fact of fire stick farming. You carry slow-burning embers with you as you travel, and you systematically and skillfully burn the landscape in a mosaic pattern. This is not mindless destruction. It is a sophisticated land management technique. The fires clear out the dense, impassable undergrowth, which encourages the growth of fresh, green grasses. This, in turn, attracts the kangaroos, wallabies, and emus you hunt, effectively creating predictable grazing areas. The fires also stimulate the growth of certain useful food plants. You have, in effect, shaped the entire landscape of Australia to be a more productive and convenient larder. Your material toolkit is a masterclass in elegant, minimalist design, perfectly suited to a mobile lifestyle. The scientific evidence for your tools comes from ancient rock art depictions and the rare artifacts that have survived. You have the boomerang, a marvel of aerodynamics. While some are designed to return, most are heavier, non-returning throwing sticks, lethal hunting weapons that can fly straight and true to take down a fleeing kangaroo. And you have the woomera, or spear thrower. This simple-looking wooden tool is a revolutionary piece of physics. It acts as a lever, an extension of your arm, that can more than double the speed and range of your spear, turning it into a deadly, high-velocity projectile. But your most profound and enduring technology is not made of wood or stone. It is made of memory. This is your quirky and mind-bending tidbit. Your people possess the oldest continuous oral traditions on the planet. Modern linguists and geologists have recorded Aboriginal stories that, when analyzed, seem to contain stunningly accurate descriptions of the landscape as it was at the end of the last ice age. There are stories from coastal groups that speak of a time when their coastline was much further out, describing now submerged islands and a time before the sea rose to its current level. These are not vague myths of a great flood. They are specific, geographically accurate accounts that match the geological record. This suggests that your people have been passing down these stories from one generation to the next for over 10,000 years, a feat of cultural memory that is almost impossible for us to comprehend. The organizing principle of your entire world is the dreaming. This is not a dream in the English sense, nor is it simply the past. The dreaming is an eternal, ever-present reality, a parallel dimension where the great ancestral beings, the rainbow serpent, the one Gina, shaped the world and laid down the law that governs all of life. Every mountain, every river, every rock formation is a physical manifestation of a dreaming story. A sacred site created by the actions of the ancestors. The entire continent is your scripture, a living, breathing storybook that you learn to read from birth. Your art is the visual language of the dreaming. When you paint on rock shelters or on bark, you are not just making a pretty picture. You are engaging with the power of the dreaming itself. The cross-hatching patterns, the X-ray style that shows the bones and organs of animals, the depictions of the great spirit beings. This art is a map of your country, a record of your laws, a tool for your rituals. It is a way of maintaining your connection to the land and to the spiritual powers that created it. You are not a primitive relic of the Stone Age. You are a member of a culture that has achieved something that our modern agricultural industrial society can only dream of, a truly sustainable way of life, built on a profound ecological knowledge and a rich spiritual framework that has endured unbroken in one of the world's most demanding landscapes for millennia. Let us now journey to the other half of the great southern continent of Sahul. We travel north from the dry, ancient landscapes of Australia to the colossal, mountainous island of New Guinea. Although it was connected to Australia for most of its history, New Guinea is a world apart. It is a land of extremes. Steamy, malarial swamps on the coast rise dramatically into cold, mist-shrouded mountain ranges that form a rugged spine down the island's center. It is one of the most biodiverse places on the planet, a tangled, vertical world of incredible ecological richness. And it is here, in the isolated valleys of the highlands, that your people are beginning another, completely independent agricultural revolution. This is a mainstream historical fact that adds another crucial piece to our global puzzle. While people in the Fertile Crescent were domesticating wheat, and people in China were domesticating rice, you and your community in the New Guinea highlands were figuring out how to cultivate a completely different set of plants, with no outside influence whatsoever. You are one of the world's original and most overlooked agricultural pioneers. Your farm, however, looks nothing like the grain fields of the north. Your farm is a garden, carved out of the dense mountain rainforest. You are one of the first highland gardeners. Your life's work revolves around a set of starchy, tropical plants that grow not from seeds, but from tubers and shoots. You are learning to cultivate taro, with its big, heart-shaped leaves and nutritious potato-like corm. You are tending to the sprawling vines of the yam, and, in a development that will one day sweeten the entire world, you are among the first people on Earth to domesticate sugarcane. You are also likely tending to the ancestors of modern bananas. These are not plants of the open field. They are children of the forest, and your methods are adapted to them. You clear small patches of jungle with stone axes and fire. You use sharpened digging sticks to till the soil, and you learn to replant the tops of the tubers or the shoots from the base of the banana plant. The clearest scientific evidence for your ancient ingenuity comes from a place called Cook Swamp, a broad valley high in the mountains. Here, archaeologists have unearthed a remarkable record of your work. preserved in the waterlogged soil for millennia. They have found the unmistakable traces of a sophisticated agricultural system dating back at least 10,000 years. There are the remains of ancient drainage channels, dug to turn the swampy ground into productive garden plots. There are the fossilized outlines of planting mounds, which you built up to improve the soil and protect your crops from rotting in the wet conditions. And there are the stone tools you used, with distinctive wear patterns from the endless work of clearing forests and tilling the soil. Here is the quirky and fascinating tidbit. This unique style of agriculture, what we call horticulture, leads to a completely different kind of society than the grain-based farming of Eurasia. Wheat and rice can be dried, stored for years, and transported easily. This allows for a massive food surplus, which can be taxed by kings, used to feed armies, and fuel the growth of huge, densely populated cities. Your crops, taro and yams, are much harder to store for long periods. They are also less calorie-dense. This means your gardening can support a healthy, settled population, but it can't create the massive surplus needed for empires. The result is not a failure, but a different kind of success. This horticultural path, combined with the incredibly rugged, mountainous terrain that isolates one valley from the next, creates a unique human landscape. Instead of large, unified kingdoms, New Guinea becomes home to thousands of small, fiercely independent, and culturally distinct communities. Your descendants will live in a world without kings or emperors, a world of intricate local politics and constant small-scale rivalries and alliances. The legacy of this is astounding. New Guinea today is the most linguistically diverse place on the planet, with over 800 distinct languages spoken on a single island. This is the direct result of the unique agricultural path you chose 10,000 years ago. You did not just invent a new way of getting food. You created the conditions for an unparalleled explosion of human cultural and linguistic diversity. Our journey now takes us across our final frontier to the last great land masses settled by humanity, the Americas. We travel east from Siberia, following the footsteps of your ancestors who, sometime in the last 30,000 years, made one of the most remarkable journeys in human history. They did not cross an ocean in boats, but walked, dry-shod, across a continent that no longer exists. This is the story of the peopling of a new world, and of the moment that world was cut off from the old. For the last time in our story, we must watch a world drown. You are standing on the edge of a vast, cold, and wind-swept plain. This is Beringia, a now submerged subcontinent that once stretched for 1,000 miles between Siberia and Alaska. Like Doggerland and Sunderland, this was not a barren bridge of ice. It was a habitable world in its own right, a steppe tundra ecosystem teeming with herds of mammoth, bison, and horses. But the same global melting that drowned the other lowlands is at work here. The sea is rising from the south and the north. Your world is shrinking. By about 11,000 years ago, the final tenuous land connection is severed. The Bering Strait is born, and the gateway between the old world and the new is slammed shut. You are one of the descendants of the first people to make that crossing, now living in the subarctic wilderness of what will be Alaska and the Yukon. Life here is a profound challenge, a constant negotiation with the cold. Not the place you'd choose for a relaxing holiday. The winters are long, dark, and brutally cold. The landscape is a vast expanse of tundra and sparse boreal forest. Your entire existence is tied to the great herds of migratory animals. You hunt the caribou, the giant, long-horned bison antiquus, and the last of the woolly mammoths. Your survival depends on your skill as a hunter, your ability to make warm clothing from hides, and your intimate knowledge of this harsh and unforgiving land. Your toolkit is a direct inheritance from your Siberian ancestors, the clear scientific evidence of your origins. You are a master of microblade technology, striking tiny razor-like blades from a prepared stone core. You set these into bone or antler points to create incredibly sharp and effective weapons for bringing down the large game that sustains you. This Paleo-Arctic tradition, as archaeologists call it, is the unmistakable signature of your people, linking you directly to the mammoth hunters of the Eurasian steppe. But your life is not just a grim struggle for survival. It is a life of family, of love, and of deep spiritual beliefs. The most powerful and poignant proof of this is the mainstream historical fact of the Upward Sun River site in Alaska. Here, in an ancient camp dated to around 11,500 years ago, archaeologists found a circular pit dug into the floor of a dwelling. Inside were the remains of 2 infants, buried together. This is your quirky and heartbreaking tidbit. One was a newborn, the other a slightly older baby. They had been placed to rest with immense care, and they were not sent into the next world empty-handed. Laid with them were magnificent grave goods. 4 long spear points, exquisitely crafted from antler and decorated with incised lines. These were not toys. They were valuable, functional tools, a profound sacrifice on the part of the living. This single, tragic burial gives us a rare and precious glimpse into your heart. It speaks of a people who felt grief as deeply as any human has ever felt it. It tells us that they believed in a spirit, a soul, and perhaps an afterlife, where these children would need the tools of a hunter. It shows that even the youngest, most vulnerable members of the community were cherished and mourned with great ceremony. These were not just bands of hardy survivors. They were families, bound by love and loss. As you lay those children to rest, the last patch of land connecting you to the world of your ancestors is sinking beneath the waves. The closing of Beringia is a momentous event. For the next 10,000 years, the story of humanity will run on 2 separate, parallel tracks. The peoples of the Americas are now on their own, completely isolated from the agricultural revolutions, the Bronze and Iron Ages, the empires, and the plagues of the Old World. You and your descendants will create your own unique civilizations, your own solutions to the challenges of life, in a world that is now truly your own. From the cold, quiet world of the far north, we now travel south, following the path of your ancestors as they moved deeper into the vast, unclaimed continent. With the great ice sheets now in their final retreat, a corridor of viable land has opened up, and your people have poured through it, emerging onto a landscape that is like nothing else on Earth. You are standing on the Great Plains of North America, and you are looking out at an ocean. Not an ocean of water, but an ocean of grass, stretching green and gold to every horizon. And this sea of grass is not empty. It is filled with life on a scale that is almost unimaginable. The dominant force in this world is the bison. But this is not the bison of the modern West. This is Bison antiquus, a giant Ice Age version, with a larger body and longer, straighter horns than its modern descendants. They move not in small herds, but in great, thundering rivers of flesh that can take days to pass. their hooves shaking the very ground you stand on. Your entire existence, your food, your shelter, your tools, your spirituality, revolves around this one magnificent animal. You are a people of the bison. You live a life of constant movement, following the great herds across the plains. Your home is a temporary shelter made of bison hides stretched over a frame of wooden poles, the ancestor of the teepee. Your clothes are made from tanned bison leather, your tools from their bones, and your fuel from their dried dung. But to hunt such a powerful animal on foot, with only a stone-tipped spear, is a dangerous and often fruitless endeavor. So your people have developed a hunting technique of incredible ingenuity, daring, and terrifying brutality. This is the mainstream historical fact of the buffalo jump. The hunt begins with weeks of planning and spiritual preparation. Your band works together with several others, a rare gathering of clans for a common purpose. You select a perfect spot, a cliff, or a steep, high riverbank. Then the real work begins. Your people build drive lanes, long V-shaped funnels that can stretch for miles, marked by cairns of rock or brush. On the day of the hunt, the most skilled and courageous young men take on the role of the buffalo runners. Draped in bison or wolf hides, they move towards the herd, mimicking the actions of a calf in distress or a predator, trying to get the lead animals to move. It is a nerve-wracking, deadly dangerous job. A wrong move means being trampled to death. Slowly, carefully, they coax the herd towards the mouth of the drive lanes. Once the lead animals are inside, the rest of the people, who have been hiding behind the cairns, leap up, shouting, waving hides, creating a wall of sound and panic. The herd's slow movement turns into a trot, then a canter, then a full-blown, thundering stampede. They are no longer individual animals, but a single, unstoppable river of terror, funneling down the drive lane, unable to turn back. The animals at the front might sense the danger of the cliff edge, but they are pushed from behind by the sheer weight of the panicked herd. And then they are over. A terrifying cascade of bellowing, twisting bodies, plunging to their deaths on the rocks below. The scientific evidence for this practice lies in the enormous bone beds found at the foot of these cliffs. At sites like head-smashed-in Buffalo Jump, the layers of bone are over 30 feet deep in places, containing the remains of tens of thousands of bison killed over millennia. And here lies the quirky and surprising tidbit. A single jump could kill hundreds of animals at once, far more than your people could possibly process. The scene at the base of the cliff is one of frantic, bloody work, the world's most intense meal prep session. Everyone works to butcher the carcasses, slicing the meat into thin strips to be dried into jerky, pounding it with fat and berries to make pemmican. But it is an impossible task. Much of the kill is inevitably left to the wolves and the vultures. It is a sobering reminder that ancient peoples, for all their deep connection to nature, were also pragmatic, and their methods could be incredibly wasteful by our modern standards. For you, it is a necessary gamble, a single day of terror and excess that will ensure your people's survival for the long, hard winter to come. Let us now travel east from the great sea of grass, leaving the thunder of the bison herds behind us. We move into a different world, a world of dappled light and shifting shadows. You are entering the vast, temperate, deciduous forest that once blanketed the entire eastern half of North America. This is a landscape of rolling hills, broad river valleys, and a canopy of oak, hickory, maple, and chestnut trees so thick that it was said a squirrel could travel from the Atlantic coast to the Mississippi River without ever touching the ground. Your life here is very different from that of your cousins on the plains. You are not a specialist, following a single source of food. You are a generalist, a master of the diverse riches of the forest. Your culture is part of what archaeologists call the early archaic period, a time when people settled into more defined territories and learned to exploit a wide array of local resources. You hunt the plentiful white-tailed deer and wild turkey. You fish in the rivers and gather freshwater mussels from the shallows. And in the autumn, you harvest a bounty of nuts from the forest floor. Your world is smaller, more intimate, and more vertically stacked than the wide open plains. Here in the north, around the shores of the Great Lakes, your people are the pioneers of a technology that is utterly revolutionary. This is the mainstream historical fact and quirky tidbit that shatters old timelines of human innovation. You are the first major metallurgists in the world. Long before anyone in the old world thought to melt sand into glass or ore into metal, you discovered the secret of copper. The geology of this region is unique, blessed with veins of up to 99% pure native copper. You find it in nuggets in the riverbeds or quarry it from shallow pits. You discover that this strange reddish rock doesn't shatter like flint when you strike it. It bends. You learn that by heating it in a fire and hammering it, you can shape it into anything you desire. This process of heating and hammering, called annealing, is the dawn of metallurgy. Your copper spear points, knives, and fishhooks are the hottest new gadgets of 10,000 BCE, thousands of years ahead of the Bronze Age. Now let us travel south, down the great river systems, to a place in what is now northeastern Arkansas. Here, on a sandy ridge in a river valley, we find a different kind of innovation, one not of technology, but of society and spirit. This is the Sloan site, and the scientific evidence tells us it is the oldest known organized cemetery in the Western Hemisphere, dating back some 10,500 years. This was not a place where people lived. It was a sacred place, set aside specifically for the dead. The site is a window into a complex ritual life. The people here were not laid to rest in simple graves immediately after death. It is more likely they were first placed in temporary scaffolds or charnel houses until the flesh was gone, and then their bones were gathered and buried together in a ritual of secondary burial. But the most astonishing feature of the Sloan site is what was buried with them. Archaeologists have unearthed over 400 stone artifacts, the vast majority of which are some of the most beautiful spear points ever made. These are Dalton points, a distinctive and elegant form with a concave base and serrated, expertly flaked edges. Many of the points buried here are oversized, made of the highest quality flint, and show no signs of use. They were not tools for the hunt. They were magnificent works of art, created specifically as offerings for the dead. The Sloan site tells us that your society is becoming more complex. The existence of a formal cemetery shows a deep, multi-generational connection to your territory, a sense of belonging to a specific place. The sheer quality and quantity of the grave goods suggest that the people buried here were important, perhaps respected elders or the heads of powerful clans. The incredible skill required to make the Dalton points hints at the emergence of the first craft specialists, artisans who were recognized and supported by their community for their unique talents. Here in the great eastern forests, the seeds of the future are being planted. In the north, you are experimenting with the planet's first metallurgy. In the south, you are creating the first formal cemeteries, developing complex social rituals, and creating breathtaking works of ceremonial art. These two streams of innovation, the technological and the social, are the deep roots from which the great mound-building civilizations of the North American woodlands, like Adena, Hopewell, and Cahokia, will eventually arise. Leaving the great temperate forests of the north behind us, we now travel south into the warm, mountainous heartland of Mesoamerica. This is the region that will one day give rise to the great civilizations of the Olmec, the Maya, and the Aztec. Here, in the dry highland valleys and the humid lowlands of what is now Mexico, your people are embarking on their own unique journey toward agriculture. This is the third great independent cradle of farming in our story, and it is perhaps the most patient and unlikely of them all. Your journey to agriculture is not a sudden revolution, born of a desperate climate crisis like it was in the Near East. It is a slow, drawn-out, multi-millennial process of tinkering and casual experimentation. You are a forager, living a mobile life in a world of incredible biodiversity. You hunt deer and rabbits, and you gather a wide variety of wild plants. But you begin to notice that some plants are more useful than others, and you start to give them a little helping hand, clearing away their competitors and saving the seeds from the best-tasting fruits. The very first plants you domesticate are not staple grains to feed the masses. This is a mainstream historical fact that reveals your practical priorities. As early as 10,000 years ago, you have domesticated a species of squash. You are not growing it for its flesh, which is bitter and thin, but for its nutritious, oil-rich seeds. Even more importantly, you domesticate the bottle gourd, not for food, but for its incredible utility. When dried, its hard shell becomes a perfect, lightweight, durable container, a water bottle, a storage vessel, a bowl. In a world without pottery, the gourd is a revolutionary piece of technology that you can grow yourself. But your greatest agricultural achievement, the one that will shape the destiny of the Americas, begins with a plant that seems utterly unpromising. In the dry valleys, a wild grass grows. We call it teosinte. It is the ancestor of maize, or corn. But it looks nothing like the cobs we know today. Teosinte is a scrawny, branching grass. Its ear is a tiny, pathetic-looking thing, no bigger than your thumb, with maybe 5 to 12 kernels. And these kernels are a dentist's nightmare. They are each encased in a rock-hard, inedible shell. Honestly, it looks like one of the least promising food sources imaginable. And yet, you see its potential. This is the story of the longest and most patient agricultural revolution. For thousands of years, you and your descendants engage in a monumental feat of selective breeding. The scientific evidence for this lies in the very DNA of teosinte and maize. Geneticists have identified the handful of key genes that you slowly, painstakingly altered. You save and replant the seeds from the rare mutant plant that has slightly softer kernels. You select for the plants that have a few more seeds on their ear, or those that don't shatter as easily. Generation after generation, for over 4,000 years, you work on this genetic sculpture. The quirky tidbit here is the sheer, mind-boggling patience of it all. Unlike wild wheat or rice, which were immediately useful, transforming teosinte into a useful food source was an act of incredible faith, a multi-millennial project passed down through countless generations. As you begin this slow journey, you are working with a distinct disadvantage compared to your cousins in the Old World. The Americas have no large, domesticable animals. The horses, aurochs, and wild boars that became the horses, cattle and pigs of Eurasia had gone extinct here at the end of the Ice Age. The only potential candidates are the bison, which are too unruly, and the llama and alpaca, which are confined to the distant Andes. This lack of draft animals will have profound consequences, meaning your descendants will build their great pyramids and cities without the aid of the wheel or the plow. 10,000 years ago, your work has only just begun. Maize is not yet a staple food. It is just one of many garden plants you tend, a minor supplement to your diet of wild game, beans, and the seeds of that useful squash. But in your hands, you hold the tiny, slowly changing seeds that contain the future. You are patiently, generation by generation, creating the engine that will one day power the great civilizations of the New World, one almost inedible kernel at a time. Our journey now takes us south, along the great mountain spine of the Americas. We arrive in the Andes, a world of stunning vertical landscapes and stark contrasts. This is not a gentle land. It is a world of extremes, a vertical archipelago. In the west, you have the Atacama, one of the driest coastal deserts on Earth, a ribbon of sand and rock pressed against the sea. But rising immediately from this coast are the Andes Mountains, which soar to breathtaking heights, creating cold, wind-swept grasslands called the Puna. In this challenging world, your people have developed two of the most remarkable and distinct adaptations on the planet, one on the coast and one in the sky. First, let's walk the shores of the Atacama. You are one of the Chinchorro people. You live a settled village life, but you are not a farmer. You are a fisherman. The desert behind you may be barren, but the ocean before you is one of the richest marine ecosystems in the world, thanks to the cold, nutrient-rich Humboldt Current. Your diet is almost 90% seafood. You are masters of the coast, harvesting fish, shellfish, seabirds, and sea lions with nets, harpoons, and hooks. This mainstream historical fact of a rich, sedentary society based entirely on marine life is another powerful exception to the agriculture first rule. But it is not your life that is most astonishing to us. It is your obsession with death. You are the creators of the world's oldest artificial mummies. This is your quirky, mind-bending, and profound tidbit. Thousands of years before the Egyptians even dreamed of building the pyramids, you were developing a deeply complex and elaborate technology for preserving your dead. The scientific evidence shows this was not simple desiccation in the dry desert air. This was a deliberate, artistic, and incredibly intricate process. Your mummification was a sacred craft. You would carefully remove the skin and organs of the deceased. You would dry the cavity and reinforce the skeleton with sticks and clay. Then you would pack the body with grasses and ash to recreate its form, and carefully stitch the original skin back on, sometimes covering it with a layer of black manganese or red ochre paint. You would fashion a clay mask for the face and a wig of human hair. This wasn't just for great leaders or powerful men. You mummified everyone, men, women, the elderly, and most poignantly, children, infants, and even fetuses. These were not just corpses. They were transformed into eternal effigies, statues of the person they once were. They were likely kept in the community, participating in the rituals of the living for generations before being buried. Your culture is the first we know of that refused to let death be the end, dedicating its greatest artistic and technical skills to keeping the ancestors physically present in the world of the living. Now, let us travel straight up, climbing 12,000 feet into the thin, cold air of the Altiplano. You are a Highlander, and your challenge is the opposite of the coast. There are no fish here, and the growing season is short and plagued by brutal frosts. But you have discovered a treasure that grows beneath the ground: the wild potato. Wild potatoes are small, bitter, and often poisonous, full of toxic glycoalkaloids. But you are a patient observer. You have learned that by eating the potatoes with a bit of clay, the clay minerals bind to the toxins and render them harmless. You also begin to cultivate them, selecting for the hardiest and least toxic varieties. You learn to plant them in raised beds to protect them from the frost. And you invent the first freeze-drying technique in history, leaving the potatoes out in the freezing night air and stomping on them in the morning to squeeze out the water, creating a lightweight, storable, and long-lasting food source called chuño. Here, in the thin air of the high Andes, you are laying another foundation. While your coastal cousins are mastering the art of mummification, you are mastering the art of high-altitude agriculture, domesticating a tuber that will one day become a staple food for the entire planet. These two great traditions, the complex ritualism and maritime mastery of the coast, and the resilient agricultural genius of the highlands, are the twin pillars upon which all future Andean civilizations, from the Chavin to the Inca, will be built. Our journey across the globe is nearing its end. We have one final destination, one last stop on the long, winding road of human migration. We travel to the very bottom of the world, to the southernmost habitable point of the Americas. This is Patagonia, a land of wind, ice, and sky. This is the end of the line. The great journey that your distant ancestors began in the heart of Africa. A journey that took them across Asia, over the Bering Land Bridge, and down the entire length of 2 continents, finally comes to rest here. Your world is a place of harsh, dramatic beauty. It is a land of vast, semi-arid steppes, scoured by a relentless wind that blows from the glaciated peaks of the Andes. It is a challenging place to make a living, a land that demands toughness and constant movement. You are a nomadic hunter-gatherer, one of the Toldense people. Your life is tied to the herds of guanaco, a wild cousin of the llama, and the flocks of rhea, the large, flightless birds that roam the plains. You live in small, mobile bands, following the animals through this immense and empty landscape, your life stripped down to the bare essentials of survival and movement. But your people have a rich inner life, a need to leave a mark, to declare your presence in this wild land. In the deep canyon of the Pintrus River, you have found a sacred place, a rock shelter that your people will return to for thousands of years to create one of the most spectacular and moving art galleries on the planet. This is Cueva de las Manos, the Cave of the Hands. This mainstream historical fact is a final, powerful testament to the artistic impulse that is shared by all of humanity. Let's step inside. The walls are covered in a breathtaking, multi-generational collage of human presence. The most famous and numerous images are the hands. Hundreds and hundreds of hands, stenciled onto the rock. The scientific evidence shows that you created them by placing your hand against the wall and blowing a spray of mineral pigment, red, white, or black, through a tube made from bone or reed. The result is a negative imprint, a ghostly silhouette of your hand, surrounded by a halo of color. Most of them are left hands, suggesting you held the spraying tube in your dominant right hand. They are layered on top of each other, the hands of children next to the hands of adults, the work of countless generations, all leaving their mark in the same sacred place. Among the hands, you have also painted other scenes from your life. There are dynamic images of guanaco hunts, with hunters surrounding their prey, using their throwing weapons. There are depictions of rheas, their tracks, and even their eggs. There are geometric shapes, circles, and zigzag patterns, whose meanings are now lost to us. But it is the hands that are the most powerful. This is your quirky and profoundly human tidbit. What does it mean to press your hand to the rock and trace its outline for eternity? It is one of the most personal and direct messages we have from the ancient past. It is a signature. It is a prayer. It is a declaration that says, simply and powerfully, I was here. I lived. My hand touched this rock. In this simple, poignant gesture, we find the culmination of our journey. Here, at the very tip of South America, we have reached the final human frontier of 10,000 years ago. That stenciled hand on a cold Patagonian cliff face is the final signature on the last page of the great story of human migration. The journey that began with a few thousand people walking out of Africa has ended with their distant descendants leaving their mark on every habitable continent on Earth. For the first time, our species is a truly global one. The stage is now set. The territories have been claimed. The various experiments in living, from farming to foraging to fishing, are all underway. The next 10,000 years of history will be the story of how these scattered, diverse communities begin to grow, to interact, to collide, and to create the even more complex world we now inhabit. And we have completed our great journey across the globe, from the drowning plains of Doggerland to the windy tip of Patagonia. We have seen what your ancestors were doing 10,000 years ago. Now, for these final few nights together, let's explore a different question. What was their world like? We are leaving the realm of archaeology and entering the world of the senses to try and understand the very texture of their reality. And the single greatest difference between your world and ours, the one that shapes everything else, is the darkness. You live in a world lit only by fire. The rhythm of your life is the rhythm of the sun. It is an absolute, non-negotiable tyranny. The daylight hours are for the great, expansive work of life, for hunting, for gathering, for travel, for building, for making tools. Your senses are wide open, taking in the vastness of the landscape. But as the sun begins to sink toward the horizon, your world begins to shrink. The setting of the sun is a profound and final event. It is a signal to return, to retreat, to consolidate. The day is for doing, but the night is for being. As darkness falls, your entire universe contracts to a tiny, flickering bubble of light and warmth. This is the hearth, the campfire. It is the gravitational center of your social and emotional world. Here, the day's harvest is cooked and shared. Here, tools are repaired for the next day's work. Here, children are comforted and cared for. The fire is your shield. Its light keeps the deep darkness at bay, and its smoke helps ward off the biting insects. Its warmth is the difference between comfort and a miserable, shivering night. The faces of your family, the only people you truly know in this world, are illuminated by the dancing flames, their features softened and made mysterious. Everything and everyone that matters is here, inside this circle of light. Beyond the edge of the firelight, the world ceases to be yours. It is a place of profound, absolute blackness, a physical presence that presses in on your little camp. This is not the grey, light-polluted darkness of the modern world. It is a perfect, primal void, and it is full of sounds. You hear the snap of a twig, and your body tenses. Is it a deer, or is it a predator? You hear the distant call of a wolf, the cry of an owl, the strange rustlings of nocturnal creatures. The night does not belong to you. It belongs to the hunters of the dark, the lion, the saber-tooth, the bear. The darkness is a place of real and tangible danger, and it commands a deep and abiding respect, even fear. But this profound darkness gives you a gift that we have lost. You look up, and you see the sky. Not a hazy, washed-out canopy, but a stunning three-dimensional celestial sphere. This is a scientific fact. Without any light pollution, the night sky is a spectacle of overwhelming grandeur. The Milky Way is not a faint, cloudy smear. It is a bright, textured, and glorious river of light. A teeming band of stars that stretches from one horizon to the other. You can see nebulae and star clusters with the naked eye. The sheer number of stars is a glittering, infinite carpet, and against it you can clearly track the slow, deliberate wandering of the planets. This is your clock, your calendar, your map, and your book of myths. The stories of your people are written in the constellations, the great spirit animals and heroes that wheel overhead each night. And down below, in the small circle of firelight, the other great spectacle begins. The darkness and the captive audience of the fire make this the perfect and only time for storytelling. This is how your culture is kept alive. An elder begins to speak, their face animated by the flickering light. They recount the story of the creation of the world. They tell the great histories of your people, the heroic hunts, the long migrations. They pass down the practical knowledge of your ancestors, the laws of your community, the lessons learned from foolish mistakes. You and the others listen with rapt attention, your imaginations painting the scenes in the darkness behind the flames. There are no books, no screens, no distractions. There is only the voice of the storyteller and the theater of the fire. In this way, the world is woven together, and the knowledge of the past is carried safely into the future, all in a tiny bubble of light against an immense and terrifying dark. Having felt the profound darkness and the sacred fire that shaped your ancestors' sensory world, let's now take one final step inward, into the landscape of their minds. What did they believe? How did they make sense of a world filled with beauty, danger, and mystery? While their specific myths are lost to us, the archaeological clues we have gathered from around the globe paint a remarkably consistent picture of a shared human spiritual worldview. The foundational operating system of your mind is almost certainly what we would now call animism. This is not a formal, structured religion, but a fundamental way of seeing the world. For you, the universe is not a collection of inanimate objects and unthinking beasts. It is a community of persons, and only some of them happen to be human. The river you fish from has a spirit, a personality. The mountain on the horizon is a sleeping giant. The great oak tree has a will of its own, and the bear you hunt is another hunter, just like you, an equal being worthy of respect. You do not see a sharp dividing line between humans, animals, and nature. The world is a living, breathing, conscious entity, and you are just one small part of its intricate, interconnected web. Every part of your world is alive, and everything you do is part of a constant conversation with it. In this world teeming with spirits, you sometimes need a specialist, a technician of the sacred, who can mediate between the human world and the other side. This is the shaman. We have seen the evidence for their work everywhere, in the deer antler headdresses of Star Ka, in the incredible trance state paintings of the San people, and likely in the strange floating round head figures of the Sahara. The shaman is your community's doctor, diplomat, and explorer. Through drumming, chanting, dancing, or the use of hallucinogenic plants, the shaman enters a trance, an altered state of consciousness, allowing their spirit to travel out of their body. They journey to the spirit world to retrieve a sick person's lost soul, to negotiate with the spirits of the animals for a successful hunt, or to seek guidance from the ancestors. This is a mainstream historical fact. Shamanism is one of the oldest and most widespread spiritual practices in the world. Your interactions with this living cosmos are governed by ritual. Ritual is the technology you use to maintain balance, to show respect, and to make requests of the spirits. It can be a small, personal act, leaving an offering of thanks at the riverbank after a good catch, or speaking a prayer to the spirit of the deer you have just killed. And it can be a massive, communal event. The great feasts at Göbekli Tepe were likely powerful rituals designed to bring your people together and honor the great powers represented by the carved pillars. The careful burial of those hundreds of beautiful spear points at the Sloan site was a profound ritual act, cementing your people's connection to their land and their dead. And the dead are never truly gone. The scientific evidence we have seen, from Jericho to the Chinchorro, shows a powerful and recurring reverence for the ancestors. You bury your loved ones under the floor of your house to keep them close. You carefully remove their skulls, plaster their faces, and keep their likeness with you, a tangible link to the wisdom of the past. You spend weeks in an elaborate artistic process to mummify their bodies, transforming them into eternal statues. The ancestors are not a faded memory. They are a real and active presence in your community, a source of guidance, identity, and power. A quirky and fascinating tidbit comes from trying to understand the strange, hybrid figures we see in your art, the part human, part animal beings. Some scholars suggest this comes from the nature of the shamanic trance itself. In this altered state, the rigid categories of the conscious mind dissolve. The shaman doesn't just feel like an eagle, they become the eagle. The boundary between human and animal becomes fluid and ambiguous. The art, therefore, is not just a picture of a myth. It is a neurologically precise depiction of a visionary experience, an attempt to capture the strange and wonderful transformations that happen in the deepest parts of the human mind. Your world, in the end, is a world that is saturated with meaning. Nothing is mundane, nothing is just a coincidence, a sudden storm, a lucky hunt, a strange dream. It is all part of the great, ongoing conversation between you and a cosmos that is vibrantly, and sometimes terrifyingly, alive. And so our long journey comes to an end. We have walked the drowned plains of Doggerland, seen the first harvests in the Levant, stood before the great temple of Göbekli Tepe, and placed our hands on the cold stone of a Patagonian cave. We have seen that the world of 10,000 years ago was not a monotonous, primitive waiting room for history to begin. It was a world of immense diversity and explosive innovation, a time when humanity was conducting a dozen different experiments in living all at once. The seeds of our modern world were all planted in your time. In the Near East, in China, in Mesoamerica, and in New Guinea, the great gamble of agriculture was just beginning, forging the partnerships with wheat, rice, corn, and taro that would one day feed the globe. In the villages of the Jomon and the Chinchorro, people were proving that a rich, settled life could also be built on the bounty of the sea. In the great forests and plains of the Americas, new peoples were adapting to a new world, while in Australia, an ancient people was demonstrating a form of sustainability we have yet to relearn. The first towns were being built. The first metallurgy was being hammered into shape, and the first cemeteries were gathering the ancestors. Over the next few thousand years, these seeds will sprout, and their trajectories will diverge. The agricultural path, with its incredible power to generate food surplus and grow populations, will become the dominant one. The small farming villages will swell into towns, the towns into the first cities. The hunter-gatherer foragers, once the entirety of humanity, will slowly be pushed to the margins of the world. The great civilizations of Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, China, and the Americas will rise, all built upon the foundations that you so painstakingly laid. Every part of our modern life is an echo of your world. The food we eat is the legacy of your first harvests. The social structures we live in, the cities, the nations, are the overgrown descendants of your first villages. The problems that plague us, social inequality, organized violence, the threat of famine and disease, all have their deep, tangled roots in the choices you made and the challenges you faced when you first chose to settle down. The fundamental questions we ask about our purpose, about the nature of the cosmos, about what happens after we die, are the very same questions you asked around your flickering firelight. Let us see you one last time. You are standing at the edge of your small village, watching the sun go down. You do not know the future you are creating. You are not thinking about building a civilization or changing the world. You are thinking about whether the rains will come for your crops, whether the hunt will be successful tomorrow, and whether the story the elder will tell tonight will be a good one. You are thinking about your children and the world you will leave for them. You are simply living, loving, struggling, grieving, creating, and enduring. And in doing so, you built our world. Your forgotten life is the foundation of our own. Your faint genetic echo still hums in our blood, and your story is, in the end, the story of us. And now, the journey is over. The echoes of the ancient campfires fade, the voices of the storytellers fall silent, and the images of that distant, vibrant world begin to soften and recede. The past is a vast and quiet country, and we were only visitors, walking for a little while in the footsteps of those who came before. Their struggles and their triumphs, their fears and their innovations, all led in a long and unbroken chain to this very moment, to you, resting here in the quiet of your own time. Their story is now a part of yours, a deep and steady rhythm beneath the surface of things. Let the vastness of that time, the great, slow turning of the millennia, be a comfort. Let the resilience of your ancestors, their ability to adapt and endure and create, be a source of quiet strength. And now, let the darkness be a friend, a soft blanket to rest beneath, just as it was for them. There are no more stories to tell tonight, only the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, a quiet and steady beat in the great, silent river of time.